said, you know, my girlfriend and my fiance at the time was violated in the worst way, and I know this is YouTube, so we got to be careful what we say. So, long story, just to give the background of that, this dude was this individual. They went to school together. She knew that he had tendencies back then. Later on, during the trial and stuff like that, other women had come forward and said that from the time he was 13 years old, he had incidents being suspended from school and doing things for certain kinds of acts that he was doing. And you watch the escalation as he got older. And, my lady being the one that got away, that didn't fall for his BS, and then, what does a predator do? They move in silence and they wait. When the big boys aren't around, they'll go and they'll violate the den. And that's exactly what happened. And in the course of that, 7 to 8 people's lives changed that night in November 2008. And November 2008, it was the 23rd. So it was about a week before Thanksgiving. And I ended up getting charged with mayhem. And because basically I put this guy in a wheelchair the rest of his life. He's got no use of his extremities and whatnot. It's not something I'm proud of. Almost kind of like what Kane is going through right now. You know what I mean?
Very good point.
But in a sense, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? And the reason why I brought this up with Flaco is because I've been watching all this, man. And this is a different channel. It's not. It's Real Talk with Flaco, and everybody knows I support the brother 100%. You know what I mean? We talk a lot offline, stuff like that. We have a lot of the same personal struggles and things, and he's helped me more than he's known. And I like to think that, I'm an ear for him at the same time. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to brag or boast or whatever, man, but, we're constantly trying to move for the betterment of our families and the people now in a positive direction. It's not about a war story.
Amen.
It's about the aftermath and the things that people don't talk about when they go through these things. When they defect, what do they feel? When you're locked away in that shoe, what do you think about? When people come at you like, hey, you know what I mean? Or you get hit, or you end up doing a hit, or every time you go somewhere, you can be cleared on one yard, you get to a shoe, you go somewhere else, someone else has a question of it. Well, I heard this and I heard that. And you got to remember, 2008, it was right during, in the middle of all these indictments and a bunch of people flipping and a lot of people started falling off in those years. You know what I mean? And who's who and what's what, and that vacuum effect that I tell people to ask me all the time. Well, how do you feel? Well, I'm not going to mention any names or talk bad about anybody, but those that know around that time know what was happening, that everybody was getting shipped off to the feds, which affects everybody at my level too.
Hold up. You're frozen. Hold up. You're on mute. Hold on, guys. Bear with us. We'll be back on track. As always, Toko has a powerful message. Oh, there he goes. He's gone. So we're still recording. So you're recording right now, so you can continue on.
Oh man, I hear you in slow motion. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfect, brother.
Yeah, you sound like you're talking, and I don't know what's going on here. Hold on a second. What happened was I got an alert on my phone for Amber Alert, and it messed everything up. So
okay,
let me.
Yeah. Just go ahead and continue. I can hear you perfect, brother. There you go. We gotta wait for a second, guys. You know what I mean? Let me entertain you guys. Toko's a good dude, man. Has a solid story, man. Backtrack those that haven't really heard it. He went through a similar situation to me, a little bit different, but the brother's back on. We're still recording, so we'll keep it going.
Okay. So I don't know where I left off at. Anyway, in 2008, there was a lot of things that were going on. So a lot of us were left, with questions of, people at that time were going through different things on the street, going through different things. So it was hard to get messages, to who you needed to get them to. People were
Yeah.
falling off. You don't know who's who and what's what. You know what I mean? So by the time I hit the county jail, I did what I needed to do on my behalf. Of course, everybody, had a lot of questions in their mind, all the rumors and stuff like that were going through. But for the most part, you know, uh, I was cleared. Nothing was said about it. But then there was the grumblings, and then a certain individual that Flaco knows really, really well, who was there, and he was the one that was making all the calls, and he had some issues because of the money situation, and this particular individual uh, who was just a northerner, to be honest. You know what I mean? If I stop and think back about it, he was a moneymaker. He was a pretty boy, and he had the gift of gab. You know what I mean? And he brought in the money, and a lot of things were overlooked. Unfortunately, my situation wasn't the only situation when it came to money. Things getting overlooked, and things getting pushed to the side. So be that as it may, you know, I didn't use anything. I didn't get any clearance. I never heard back on anything about using what had happened in my defense. I kept my mouth shut, didn't get no statements, and just did the old school way. Hey, I did it. There's no way around it, and I'm just going to take this one on the chin. So I took 10 and a half years before I went to trial. I got a bunch of letters, though. That was one thing I didn't talk about from that my lawyer got from other people that this dude had victimized, or that went to school, or that knew stuff. I had a lot of women that I didn't know, and Alicia, that was my ex-fiance, a lot of people on her behalf who spoke up for me, and even she wrote a letter as well. So, because I don't know if a lot of people are aware, when you're fighting a case and you're an NR member, or even if you're one of the big homies, you can't just start giving statements. You can't just start especially if other people are involved, because it's a form of telling. And I always knew, it was the first part of my schooling as a Nuestra Raza member, if I get cracked, they're always going to try to infiltrate me, even if you're at the smallest level. If they have any hint that you're involved in anything on a regimental level, or if you're involved with any type of politics, they're going to get you to try to make incriminating statements so you admit that that's who you are, and then they can hit you with everything else.
With
They cross
enhancements
you
and
up with the
all that.
homies, and they, you know what I mean? And then that's why a lot of people, another thing that doesn't get talked about too much, paperwork, funny style, this and that. Cops will say whatever they're going to say. I know we need them. This is not a bash against police, but when it comes to them against us, the criminal, I guess, against the righteous, person holding the badge, quote unquote, it's always going to come down to their word against ours. You know what I mean?
And you know
And
what?
as we all know,
I'm gonna touch on something real quick, man. Okay, in 2003, I ended up clearing someone from Hollister, right? They had the police officer. There was no interview or nothing like that, but the police officer said that he made statements. Okay, he filed the citizen's complaint against this officer for endangering his life. He also took the rap on the whole damn case, and there were still homeboys that tried to speak bad about him with no proof. I ended up clearing the dude because my justification for clearing him was this: his word against a crooked cop. You know what I'm saying? There's no factual basis. There's no video interview. There's no none of that. You know what I'm saying? People don't realize that cops will twist up people's words. They'll lie and do all kinds of stuff. So this youngster did everything he could to prove that he didn't make these statements at all. And there was no proof that he made the statements. So how are you going to take a cop's word over it? You know what I mean? A homeboy's word. Especially after he took the deal, took the whole rap of the case. So that said a lot. You know what I mean?
yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, all loyalties and everything like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, it was a horrible time, and I don't wish that on my worst enemy, man. But I just thought back to my schooling, and I thought I didn't do anything wrong. I did everything right, but in a lot of homeboys' eyes, the grumblings were it was, an act of vigilantism. You know what I mean? Oh, and then I had to deal with all the, the hissing and the snickering behind my back. No one ever said nothing to my face. You know what I mean? But it was just like, well, how do you know that it wasn't consensual, this, that, and the other? I knew already, and they even took my DNA just to make sure. You know what I mean? And when it was all said and done, that was, the one thing that I had left out, because a lot of people got to remember, last time I seen Alicia was that night. And I didn't see her, God bless her, but I didn't see her the rest of her life after that. It was all phone conversations and telephone calls because I had 10 calendars I had to do. And she had to go through what she had to go through by herself, which was another big, guilt trip on my part, is going back to that situation. When you get a phone call and
Yeah.
your loved one or your wife or your sister or your mother is in trouble and you go and you react, you know, uh, a lot of things get blurred out at the time. You know what I mean? And back to the Cain Velasquez situation, in the heat of the moment, of course, they're going to say it was premeditated because he was chasing the dude. But, the same thing in my case, it really was the heat of the moment. I got a phone call, but, like the prosecutor said, I reacted. I should have called the police. You didn't know. You can't take the law into your own hands type of deal. And now the man's paralyzed the rest of his life. Well, you know, I look at it as now he can't hurt anybody else's daughter. He can't
Yes,
do this to
sir.
anybody else's mother or anybody else. He can't live out those sick and twisted fantasies hiding behind what the what I'm trying to say now. Don't get it twisted, how I thought back then. He can't hide behind our cause. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's part of the bonds, it's part of the rules, it's anything, man. No
You know, you
women, no
know,
children, no matter what.
and
But
I still hold those same morals, bro. Like I don't just from me to you, bro. You know what I mean? Like I don't
yeah,
see nothing wrong with your actions of what you felt you had to do, and I probably would do the whole thing over again, bro. To be honest with you, you know what I'm saying? I know maybe you don't feel that way because we'll go into that story later on. What the reason why you maybe don't feel like that? You know what I mean? But at that moment,
I can't hear you, brother, man. You're either muted or it just sounds like you're
we're good.
talking hell. It's like there's a lag or something like that. I can't make out what you're saying anymore. I don't know what's going on. You can hear me okay though, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Anyway, so uh I ended up getting convicted. It was a life sentence I was looking at. Once the detectives and everybody was mad because I wouldn't give a statement. They were trying to nail me to the cross, and they knew it was because I was an active homeboy and this and that, and anybody that knows, the police, especially in the county where I was at, they're going to be on it like flies on shit. But I exercised my right, and I did my best impression of autism. I didn't give one statement, and my lawyer was just like, "You're out of your mind. This is your fiance." I said, "Listen, man, I couldn't even tell her, hey, I haven't gotten no clearance. I haven't heard anything back. You know what I mean?" And I just said, you know what? I didn't. It'll all come out. You know what I mean? And several months later, of course, it did. And DNA evidence, and the police were able to do their detective work, and they put it together. Why did I do what I did to him? Because of what happened. So it was all like three separate trials. JoJo's trial for stabbing the dude who was backing up this dude at the house. He caught him a couple of weeks later in downtown San Jose, and they went at it. Never found the weapon, but he took a 9-year deal. You know what I mean, on my behalf, and he was also engaged to Alicia's sister Regina. You know what I mean? So we were all one big family, and it just kind of worked out that way. And so I got sent up at the end of 2009, and I didn't go to Quinton. I ended up going down to Delano for the first time, and everything was all good down there. And then they found out who I was, and so of course, I was validated. And about 60 days later, they stuck me inside the hole. And in the process of all that, you got to understand that I hadn't been in the system for a minute. I had been off parole for about 3 or 4 years at that time. I was on my way to get engaged and get married when she wanted to go out and celebrate her becoming a registered nurse. And as any man who knows what he has at home, I let her go. And that was the other biggest misconception, Flaco, was that, all the negative comments I remember seeing, it was only a few, was like, would you let your old lady go out in the first place? Check this out. A woman is going to do what she wants to do regardless. And if you know what you have at home, then, she's going to have free reign to do whatever. I'm a firm believer in the fact that you can't make somebody love you. They got to want you in their life, and they got to love you on their own. If I got to jump through hoops to keep your attention or keep you on some kind of lock and key, then what have I learned from any of from the bonds or the formats on how to be a better man? I didn't learn nothing. You know what I mean? And I wasn't an insecure dude. And she loved me, and I loved her. And it was no different than 100 times that she had went out with her friends before. I'll be home at a certain time. Okay, I love you. How was it? There was no harm, no foul. You got to remember, her and I had known each other since diapers. And she watched me have kids with other people and bump my head and do a 7-year prison term when I was, 17 and get pulled, never asked me any questions, but always knew, with a Flaco situation, she was a homegirl of mine. I was with another girl who she had known, shouts out to Karen. I won't say her last name, but she got a hold of me too. She remembers the story when Flaco's wife, what happened to her, something similar, and how it was disregarded. And at that time, Karen was, she knew a little bit more, and women talk. And she left me behind. And I didn't know Flaco personally. I knew of him. He was the big homie, and he was the one who was, was running things and who to go through. There was some situations, I think, I don't know if it was between Mas Locos and Capital Parker was good old faithful, the mob and Horseshoe, that the big homies were getting involved into, to put a ceasefire, all that stuff. And in the meantime, I had been out, and I had heard, and her and I had gotten into a bad argument, Karen and I, and she just said, this man, your big homie who's running things, if they can disregard his wife, who's supposed to be out, I mean, there was nothing, there was other people there was other bees that were there, and JoJo was there, and all any of us could do was put our head down, because for one, I can't argue the point with her, because then I put myself out there. Even if it got back to Flaco, I'm talking about this I can get in trouble or DP'd. So I just had to sit there and say, what are you talking about? Who, what, I had to play dumb, and she just said, no way. I'm your lady. You don't have to this and that. If this could happen, anything could happen to any of us. And she would try to get me to admit, I'm not stupid. I know, I mean, I know about this, I know about that. And I just, Karen, relax. You're tripping, and she slapped me and she walked out, and she just told me, you know what I mean? And then JoJo and I went out, and he was smoking cigarettes back then. And we went to, we were downtown across from Wiener Schnitzel on 19th there, man, at the, I can't fucking think of the park right now. I got a brain
Roosevelt
fart,
Park. Roosevelt Park.
We walked across. Yeah. And he told me, he grabbed my shoulder, and he's
froze it up again. We're going to wait for him. So yeah, he's talking about the situation I already discussed on. I was active at the time when they were talking about this, so it was a real issue that was really being discussed, man. So far the interview's going good. We're gonna have to tap into a little bit about I want to go more into the after part. So I'm waiting for him to tap right back in, guys. So we should be on in every minute. So I hope you guys are enjoying the interview so far, man. Positive, productive day as always. It's your boy Flaco, Real Talk. Waiting for Toko to come back in. He'll be here any minute. So yeah, Toko, man, if you guys haven't heard the story, man, it's a very man, it was what's the right word? It was very touching and moving, and it was very hard to listen to, and it was very hard to grasp how anybody could be okay with what occurred. There's nothing righteous that happened. Everything was all bad. There's a lot of people that take advantage of, having money or being financially gained or having status, and so forth, man. And it's always the good people that are solid, that have good hearts, that suffer the worst consequences in this lifestyle. And that's kind of the message here that we're going with Toko. You know, come on, Toko, come back in, brother. So, waiting for the brother to come back in. Yeah, man, it kind of moves me though that he was very aware of my situation when I went through, and just to hear that the lady broke it off with him because she heard what happened to me when I was out in that situation. That's kind of a shocker right there. That I mean, like from talking to people that remember what happened with me, it's like, man, I get a lot of love from a lot of people. Like, man, what occurred with you was wrong. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to sit there and try to spin it, the narrative, or justify anything. It is what it is. And that's the message, that these are the type of things that happen in that lifestyle. There's no true loyalty, when it comes down to certain situations. There are going to be some good homeboys out there. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? But pushed up comes to shove. No one has a voice to stand up for always what's right, or they fear doing what's right. People will limit themselves and stop short of going where they need to go with something. You can come in a situation, ask 10 people, what do you think about this situation? Is it right or wrong? They may all say it's wrong. Will you voice your opinion on it? No. They don't want to get crossed up. They don't want to get deemed. So Toko, he's pretty much missing in action. Where's he at, man? I will move this real quick. I'm going to fill up my coffee while I wait, man. I hope this interview continues. Otherwise, I'm going to have to cut this one up. There he is. He's back.
So my
phone
on my phone.
It's all good. I was just talking a little bit. So what I want to go into now, right, is I want to kind of. Oh, there he goes. Sorry, guys, man. So far, the interview's going good, I hope, man. I'm over here running around doing coffee on the video. Yeah, so what I want to do from this point forward, I want to talk about your defection from the NR.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I think that's what people want to really hear, the truth, how you were feeling, everything. Like, I mean, that's because me, when everything happened with me, I felt the same way as you. Like everything that occurred, and I should have never been put in that position to have to make that choice. That's how I felt. And so I had a lot of resentments towards everybody,
Yeah.
So I want to go into how you felt, what you were going through.
All right. You can see me okay? So fast forwarding to 2010, the end of 2010, I was in Solano, and they were going to move me over to Salinas Valley. But now, mind you, I had already moved around for a little bit, and once I got there, some people roll up on the yard that were on the street that knew Lancho and came from the county jail or came from other institutions right away. Hey, Toko this, Toko that, right? You know what I mean? There was some red flags. So without getting into a long, because I don't want to start mentioning these names because I don't know where any of these dudes are at that time, and that's not what this is about. It's about me and what happened to me. But I will mention, because this dude is out, a homeboy named Chinito Ramirez, who was part of my squad when he was 19. And later on, I heard that he was part of a Chuco squad when he was in Salinas Valley. Well, this dude was striving, he was functioning. He knew my situation, but like a lot of homeboys knew in private when we would talk, they'd be like, man, that's fucked up. What happened? That ain't right, man. Hopefully this all gets straightened out. But you can't go against the grain. And I understood that. But they just said, hey, anything that we can do. But hey, Toko, I said, I know what time it is. Don't trip. So they put a couple people on me, and they were about to put me on a quote unquote freeze, which means I wasn't going to be privy to any activities. I couldn't have any weapons. I was basically going to be on an, incommunicado. And Chinito let me know with a kite. What he had heard the day before that was that it came down the pike, and the word was it came from, the Big L. And he told he told a couple other individuals that fuck this dude in the neck. He's not going to shut up. He's a detriment. You know what I mean? And he's just a punk ass NR member.
And that's exactly what Lecho would have said, man. Fuck him in the neck.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And Chinito just he was shaking, and he's like, "You do what you got to do." He goes, "But if this comes back," I said, "Don't trip. It won't." He goes, "Well, the two dudes that are on you, they're going to move on you. You know what I mean? They're going to take you out. They ain't going to be with tomahawks." I said, "Is that right?" So, without getting into all that, you know what I mean? We all know what happened. They poked me a couple of times, and I poked them. And then when I got to the hole, 7 days later, I get a DA referral for, possibly an attempted murder and attempted stab, and I'm just like, well, what's going on here? And then when I get the notes, the goon squad, the gang, the SSU comes to see me and shows me this paperwork saying, what's going on here? What's up with this? Were you the target or were they? Because they're putting all this on you. The dudes who were quote unquote supposed to whack me ended up telling on me.
Oh, wow.
And because I got the jump on them. And basically, like I said, I'm not Superman, but I got a little bit of skills. Like Flaco's got a little bit of energy. So, and the biggest thing, and I'll get into this really quick, like I said, it's not about the glamorization, but Flaco's talked about it before. When you know you're going to shoot somebody for the first time, you sweat, you got to take a shit, you got to piss, fart, wink at the same time because your nerves are just going crazy. Once you get it off, all that goes away. Same thing when you stab somebody. First time I tomahawked somebody, I was nervous as shit that it was going to break. First time I stabbed somebody. After that, man, it's like putting butter on an English muffin. And that sounds twisted, but that's part of business. And people need to understand that. It's not about glamorizing it. It's just that if you're made for that and all that training and everything you do is an NR or en soldado or whatever they want to call it nowadays, that's all part of it. The historia, the weaponry, and how to do things. And like I said, that's as high as I ever went. So the other biggest misconception, I never said I was an ANF. I never said I was a carnal. All I was an hermano, a bro, an en soldado, whatever they called now. That's what I was. You know what I mean? Even though they dismantled it in 97, the acknowledgement was still there. And people will tell you that. You know what I mean?
Yes,
we still felt.
They still use the word, we still use the word bro and NR and all that. So hey, Toko. So I want to know, right? Like I want to go into the second part, okay? Because what was your deciding factor on just leaving? What was the end? What was it to finally say, you know what, enough's enough?
To sum it up in 2 words, man, this may sound like punk shit, but it's not. It's real. It's how I felt. My feelings were hurt.
That's real.
Getting poked twice didn't mean nothing. I got sent out to the pasture like I was some freaking rat. Like I was some like I did that to Alicia. That's the way that I felt like I got done, and by two dudes who were more scared watching me every day than they knew what to do. I'm sure if there was an experienced person, you know what? I don't know if I'd either be doing life because I would have had to finish the dude off, or they would have got me. And for what? Because I wouldn't keep my mouth shut because of what happened to my old lady.
Bingo.
But everything.
Same thing with me.
Bro,
Same thing with me.
Everything that I went through, I was exposed to everything so quickly, man. I'm Tongan and I'm Samoan. I grew up on the east side of San Jose, man, with nothing but raza. Whether you look like Flaco, whether you look like me, man, it was very diverse in this cul-de-sac that I was in, man, and they embraced me. And I never forgot that. And it had nothing to do with gangs. It just evolved into being a norteño, evolved into defending the hood. It evolved in going inside the penitentiary. And then, 2 weeks after I'm in San Quentin, somebody gets whacked. I get not have any schooling or anything back then. They weren't doing no HHPs, in the early, this is 93,
Nope, none of
94.
that.
It was just, if your paperwork was clear, orale. You know what I mean? And I went in there, man, and turns out, like I said, Gibby seen that I just fucking held my mud. That's all I knew how to do. Fuck, man. You know what I mean? And they took a liking to that. And I've always said this. In my experience, anytime you kiss ass or you go in raising your hand, hey, I want to be a bro, I want to be, they look at you like you're a peseta. And that's real talk. They look at you like, man, this motherfucker, he's the first one who's going to pee on. Okay, let's put him out there. But if you conduct and you carry yourself, everybody expected me to conduct and carry myself like a chump because I was 18 years old. I got tried as an adult. I came in the system when I was 19, when it was all said and done on a 7-year bid. I did the whole thing. I didn't come home till 2001 the first time. And everything that I learned, that's why my heart and my regards are always in Monterey County and the Central Valley, because that's where I got most of my schooling for Nuestra Raza, how to conduct and how to carry myself, how to use my verbiage, how to write huilas, how to write reports. And any chance I got to slide up next to somebody, it's because they like me. It's not because I kissed ass. I tell Flaco, and I write in the comments all the time, I fell under rank and file, whether I had a heavy heart, whether I agreed or whether I disagreed. Hey, this is for the betterment. Who the fuck am I? You know what I mean? The carnales were the wheel, and the bros were the spokes that kept the machine going. That's how I was taught. And so when all that happened, and I'm looking at my back with this fucking the stitches and the super glue holding in there, man, you know what I mean, on my left flank, which I'll carry forever, something went inside of me like I wanted to fight. You know what I mean? I felt like how Bugsy did when you interview Bugsy, like, send me back out there. You know what I mean? Send me back out there. Let's see what happens next time. And I went through all that immature, and then I started thinking about
ego,
Alicia.
bro. It's ego.
I got the damn fucking Nuestra Raza and fucking calligraphy blasted on my back. Every morning I went to go lick my wound. I'd seen that. What is it? Now I'm a laughing stock, even though nobody was laughing, but your mind goes there. What are they thinking? What's happening? There's everybody plotting against me. What's going to happen to my family? What's going to happen? What's going to happen next? What betrayal? Who's going to believe this? Little did I know, a lot of this happens in a lot of the O's, a lot of different organizations. The Sureño, man, I got so many messages. Anyway, the hunger strikes were starting to happen, and there were grumblings. Mind you, I'm fast forwarding. You're gonna start letting people out of the shoe. You're gonna start put people out. You know what I mean? You're gonna start letting all these dudes back on the main lines and stuff like that. And a lot of people were falling off. They had me on walk alone when I was in the hole. And then they ended up sending me to Salinas Valley, so I stayed in Ad Seg there until they figure out what they could do. And then I went to a hearing, and he decided they had 3 confidential informants basically telling you put Toko back out there, he's no longer welcome as a B. His status has been stripped, blah, 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 this and that. You know what I mean? This is SSU telling me this stuff. At the same time, I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. You know what I mean? I'm in here on a mayhem charge. And then basically, the officer just basically told me, he's like, look, until we figure this thing out, you know what I mean? You might want to reconsider. And then little by little, homeboy started coming in, and there was a particular individual that he doesn't want to be mentioned, but he was a Famliano. He was just an up and coming. He'd been a C for about 2 years, and something happened on the street, and then they tried to whack him. You know what I mean? And he was there, and they were getting ready to move him. He's like, hey man, he goes, I'm fuera. And I said, what are you talking about, man? He goes, you know what I mean? He goes, my goose is cooked, man. My time is done. My career is over. He goes, all I got to say is what happened to you was foul. Not a lot of the brothers, if it would have got back up to who it needed to get up to, you would have been cleared right off the top. He goes, but it's not like that. Everybody that's of any of importance is in the bay. You're in no man's land. You're on your own. He goes, but my advice to you, because I love you and I care about you, and I know what kind of individual that you are and what you did for your fiance. He goes, I suggest you think about taking that packet. They're going to come at you with a packet. I said, a packet? He goes, yeah. You know what I mean? The debrief packet. He goes, I know what you're going to say. And I'm just like, man, I don't know. You know what I mean? And it took me about a month, Flaco. It took me about a month. You know what I mean? And it was before my birthday in August that I said, okay. You know, I mean, I went through all kinds. I went through all kinds of just thinking about that. I felt shame.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
Most
mean, I
definitely. I
felt like,
understand, brother.
what was it going to do? And I just says, man, you know what I mean? I can't, man, I ain't going to testify. You know, I was so ignorant to what it was because they don't school you on that because you know what I mean? And I said, man, what are they going to, what's going to happen to me? You know what I mean? And what made me finally decide was getting a phone call and, well, actually getting a letter. You know, I had gotten a phone call and Alicia, I got clean and sober the second time, and she wrote me, and basically, without I don't, it's pretty personal, but the ending of it says, I'll be forever grateful for what you did. She's like, I know I'll never be able to give you kids. I know that when you get out, things are going to be different. She's like, I got no idea what you're going through in there. She goes, but if what's happening is what's really happening, then all I can tell you is I wish you would have went left instead of right that night because I really need you here. She needed me there for all the rape counseling and all the
Yeah.
she went through it alone. And at the same time feeling shame because
Of
the
what happened.
conversations of what happened that, she's like, she would tell me, Flaco, I know I love you. I know you love me. I know what you did. But every time I think about you coming home, you got no idea what I've done behind the drug use. I'm not the same girl. You know what I mean? You probably would call me a whore, and I would just tell her, we'll get through it. Don't think that way. Don't feel that way. And she's like, and then she would just cry. She goes, look what this SOB did. Look what he did to you. Look what he did to us. And he's still alive. He's in a wheelchair. And I told her, relax, take it easy. She's like, and then she, you know what I mean? Basically told me in the letter, I wish you were here. She goes, you asked me what I need. I need you here. But you can't be here, can you? You're in there. And she goes, so many lives are messed up, not just yours. She goes, so many other people out here. She goes, and all of us are lost souls right now. And that broke me down, bro. And I couldn't sleep. And that's when I decided, okay, if
Let's make this choice. Okay.
let's make this choice. And when the SSU came by and asked, how I was doing, I told them, hey, it was a certain officer. I said, does that offer still stand? He's like, what? I said, I want my freedom back, man. And, I want a chance to do the rest of my time, and make something of myself. You know what I mean? But,
So
you know,
we're gonna be short. We only have a few minutes left to record on this thing.
mm-hmm.
So take us through the process and everything. I mean, as far as that.
So when that process happens, they pull you out. They give you this packet. It's got all your information on there. At least that's the way it was back then for me. You know what I mean? And you agree to this. You sign some papers and stuff like that. And then it's just actions. It's all stuff from your validation. It's all stuff that they just need you to corroborate and to confirm of who you are, what your status is. You know what I mean? When you were indoctrinated, and who you ran with, and stating what your purpose is. You know what I mean? And it was about the two stabbings that I had done, a couple of removals, a couple of times I went to the whole situation. Basically, I had to validate who I was
Basically,
because
you
in those
basically you discuss your whole career,
you discuss your whole career, and
and
like I said,
they already know everything. Believe it or not.
they already know everything. And the thing is what I found out later on from a couple other homeboys why it would take so long is because everything that I confirmed, they have to confirm it. Hold on real quick.
Very deep story, the brother.
Um, they they have to confirm, like I said, they have to confirm everything. And if you're lying about anything, then your ticket to go to a 50/50 or S&Y yard, uh, you'll just stay in the hole. You know what I mean? You'll
Okay,
stay in
so
that sag.
so
You know?
so you went through the debriefing process. You get back out to the main line. Um, I want you to sum this up. We're gonna end this from this point forward, right? Tell the viewers what you want to tell them.
Basically, everything that I had went through, all the stuff and all the sacrifices that that I had made and that I had went through. And like I said, yeah, in most people's eyes, I was just a B. You know what I mean? But I believed in the cause. I believed in the betterment. They accepted me, and I ran with it full force. Like I said, there were times I did things with a heavy heart. There were times I questioned a lot of stuff, but I stayed face and I fell in rank and file and I kept moving forward because I believed in it. But
So
when the betrayal got so deep
this is
that
what people need to hear, Toko. This is what they need to hear. You didn't abandon the gente. The gente abandoned you, bro.
they did, you know what
You
I
know what I'm
mean?
saying? Not the
And I
gente in
say that,
general, not the foot soldiers, not a lot of the NR members, not even all the C's, but the ones that were put in the position that could have helped you weren't there to support you.
yeah,
So when people listen to his story, right? I don't mean to chime in, right? He did everything by the book for years. This didn't just happen like a year into it, 6 months into it, 2 years. He was 6 years into this, into his sentence when he decided to do what he did. And so all on that lines, he had to go through this issue. And finally, an individual who's known for crossing up people that he has personal agendas or to assist people that can financially gain. He's the one that kind of had to say in this whole case, man. The same person that I had issues with that led to me defecting. That's the
hmm
coincidence here. The same thing that
yeah,
the other homeboy that we already know, the other big homie on the other channel, he tried to cross that home whip as well. So there's an underlying thing here. Why do people like this, who don't have the best interest at heart, still continue to be put in positions to where they can make choices that affect people's lives?
exactly. And all this stuff runs through your head at
Yeah.
the time, and everything that happened. And now I'm going to be this rat. Now I'm going to be this. Now I'm going to be that. But you know what? I slept. After all that was said and done, and CDC, they kept their word what they were going to do. The ground didn't open up. No lightning bolts came through. It was just okay. Toko, you could be Toko. You got a shot at education. You got a shot at vocational. You got a shot at all this and that. And it was an adjustment to get to that 50/50, which eventually turned into an S&Y. But there were so many dudes that I thought were dead that fell off were there, and the biggest, and the lightheartedness about that is when I hit the Tehachapi yard, the dudes were there were individual I hadn't seen in years. Toko, what took you so long? And we embraced, and Jojo followed about 18 months later, you know what I mean? And we both sat there and we realized that, you know what, this is the best thing that we do. Now we got a shot at, because you forget, the main thing is I had kids. I had a life. I had a career. I was doing things, but every time that phone rang, I wasn't obligated to a regimen. But if a C knew that I was out, if Flaco would have called me, hey, homie, I need your assistance, I could have said no. But Flaco would have just put a big check on that list, like, okay, you know what I mean? We'll see what happens when he needs us. I always went, whether it was to do little things, pick people up, do whatever it is, man. And I lived a double life for a long time. And like I said, it wasn't at a high level, but it was at a level where a lot of people wish they
You
could have been.
was
And
on a respectful level, bro. Everybody knows that, bro. And for people to understand, man, it's very hard to come on and acknowledge this stuff. But sometimes this isn't. It's also therapy for you. You know what I'm saying? To
it
get this
is,
stuff out
yeah,
there, to explain it, and maybe someone else that's going through a similar situation, or someone else could sit there and look at these stories and hear the truth and maybe make better choices. You know what I mean? Because not everything
uh,
is going to be roses. You know what I mean? It's a very twisted life. You know what I mean? Crooked
and
turns,
not
twisted
and
fades.
this is not the glamorous part of it that people like to talk about. They want to, and like I said, I'm not. I'm just speaking about me.
Yeah.
I know what my truth is, and I'm okay. You know what I mean? And I've run into a couple of people that said they were going to do this, said they were going to do that when I was in San Jose a couple of years ago. And you know what? Handshakes and hugs. Hey, homie, ain't nobody tripping on all that, man. You did what you had to do. That was just, you know, but these guys had all made threats that they were going to do this to me, do that to me. But then we know when you're in somebody's face, you already know. You know what I mean? It's either put up or shut up. I mean, I never put myself out there. It's all about the positivity. But, you know, the reason why I'm coming out about this now is because, you know, transparency is everything. And I
Yeah.
don't hide anything. And I don't act like I'm all good. I don't act like I'm active. The stories that I'm telling are true. It's my truth. People can judge me, but you got to ask yourself, what can you do? And that's okay. If people don't want to stop fucking with me or doing whatever, I'm all right, man. I got everything I need in my life and then some. And, you know, I still keep a small circle. That's not out of fear. That's just out of intelligence. That was
Yes,
my
sir.
biggest problem. That was my biggest problem was I knew too many people and I never got caught up for anything that I did. All the violation, everything I did, if you look at my history, was behind taking it for somebody else. That's the truth. And I always had to write up, why did you get violated? People don't remember that either, Flaco. You know that every time a B,
Yeah.
I don't know how it is for a C, you get violated. They want to know, hey, what the fuck,
They
man?
want a
What are
whole
you
they want
doing?
a whole investigational report about what happened, and if it, you know what I mean, if it's inappropriate, you're
Yeah.
on frontline status fines and everything. Anyways,
Yeah.
we're coming full circle right now, where things start to become a pivotal role, and where his life changed right after he debriefed and entered the SNY yard for the first time. So I'm gonna let him talk a little bit about SNY a little bit right now and what he experienced, because I know for me, I never went SNY. Okay, I never was put in that position. So I never understood how it would feel, but I do understand how it feels when this has been your whole life. He was a New Esperanza member for 17 years. That's a long time. You can raise a kid to be a man in that age bracket, you know. So I can only imagine the hardships and struggles and things that he was going through during that stage, because I went through the same thing, man, and I fed that through a dope addiction for years. So without further ado, man, let's let Toko start to talk. We're going to go on this interview. It's going to be a banger as always.
All right. Thank you for that. Um, so basically, I guess where we left off a couple weeks ago was when I went through all the trials and tribulations, and I decided to put my life first for once. And once I went through all those head trips and everything else, and got through the process, and all everything, the paperwork and all that stuff was verified, then you know they got to run an enemy list on everything, especially when you're involved in removals and hits and stuff like that. Because I don't know if people even pay attention to that. I know I didn't when I was active. Is that, you know, the cost of doing business, the cost of doing business. You don't think about, you know, hey, who's going to be on my enemies or what chrono am I going to have, because that don't apply to you. You're going to on the main line. But when you start the process of leaving that life, and however you go, man, it ain't a judgment. Some people go out, certain, you know, people want to judge about how they go out, do this and that. You know what I mean? That's not what this is about. It's about the fact of, you know, turning your life around and getting an opportunity. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And for me, I had done the time. You know what I mean? It wasn't about telling on anybody or anything about my case. I took it on the chin, 10 years and 8 months with a second strike. Never gave a statement, never did nothing. You know, I mean, I pissed a lot of people off, family wise, my kids. And that's sort of what this one's going to be about, is that, you know, the innocent victims all the way around, not just with
Yes,
the
sir.
case, but the ones in my life, my mother, my father, the strained relationships. And, but we'll get into all that later. So it was probably about 13, 14 months after the debriefing process that I was cleared. And I was warned, you know, by the gang coordinator, the squad, and IG that, you know, I'm on thin ice. They feel for my situation, but there's really nothing concrete. They're getting mixed messages because I guess there was some questions about authorization, about making the move on me that they couldn't confirm or deny, and they were trying to make sure that I wasn't a sleeper. Now at this time, it's the you know, it's the 2010s. To my knowledge, there ain't been sleepers that we used to use for years. You know what I mean? So for them to say stuff like this, I knew that there was a lot of things going up at the top, with these indictments and people flipping, and they really couldn't confirm a lot of things. You know what I mean? I don't know exactly when, the big L fell out of favor, but I'm pretty sure it probably was around that time. And once I got to the first 50-50 yard before the transition into just a full S&Y, um, I had to sit there for more than, I think it was about a month before they let me out to that line. And I had mixed emotions. You know what I mean? Um, I didn't hear anything negative because I didn't come from the street and went that way. I was once on the main line and active, still on the same sentence. And then I pretty much did the last quarter or a little less than half of the rest of my 10 years, on the 50-50, which converted into an S&Y later on. And you go through all the head trips, you know what I mean? Like, who am I going to run into? How's this going to be? Are the stories all true? Is it just going to be, going through all that, you're considered a degenerate, and just all the head trips, and then finally realizing that my life had come full circle. The
Yeah.
very thing, the very thing that I was blessed with. I mean, and I'll just touch on this really quick. I was proud. I was proud to be in Norteño. Once I figured out what the plight was, quote me on that. Not on the streets, not the bullshit that I participated. Because for anybody to sit there, unless you had family that was clicked up, or you were born into one of these prominent families that were in San Jose, you didn't know shit. It was geographical. I could have been a Sureño if I was on the if I lived over on a certain part of town, and that's just real talk. You know what I mean? You're a product of your environment. Speaking for myself. So once I got inside and I realized it was militant, there was no, and I always wanted to join the military, and I guess in a sense I did. Instead of military, I went militant. You know what I mean? I thrived on the chain of command. I thrived with the rank and file, the writings, and I mean, like I said, the comments and stuff like that. Who's this white boy Toko? Nobody white. You know what I mean? I'm straight fucking Tongan and Samoan. And just because I got an intellect doesn't mean I'm superior. It just means I pay attention and I can articulate myself to where people can understand. If you can't understand me, that's no fault on your own. This just the way that I went. I gravitated through those NR and NF members that had it up here. Anybody could have the guns and the fight and make weapons and use them, but to know what to do in the aftermath, you know what I mean? How to get at, hey, Flaco's on the yard, he's a new, and how to get at him on a piece of paper, let him know what's going on. Remembering codes of conduct, remembering every yard is different. Every C is different. Every other NR member who's above you is different. They run things different. And that's the biggest misconception. We're all one, but every yard has its own entity, you know? And all that goes away. All that went away. I had no more strive. Now, for the first time, I'm left to my own devices. Now, how can I take all that negative in society's eyes, everything I learned as a structure member or NR member, all that stuff, how can I take all that discipline now and apply it to Toko?
Yeah.
Because for all those years, bro, my kids and Alicia and my immediate family suffered the price of my indiscretions. Yeah, I kept my mouth shut. I stayed solid. I did what I had to do, heavy heart or not. I still followed rank and file and I did what I had to do. But they suffered. And my actions, even though my heart cared, you could tell somebody you love them, you care all day long, but your actions, what do they say? Actions speak louder than words.
Actions speak volumes, brother. You know what I mean?
And when your own parents, when you parole, tell you, you ain't coming here. Parole already told us what you're involved in, and this. So, CDC, they play a pivotal role as well, and nobody talks about that. They set you up. They ride that line too of legalities, just because they want you so bad.
Yep.
When you're not privy to making statements, and they can't find, and no one wants to roll on you, it makes them mad. It makes them upset, and for good reason. It makes their job harder. But all these things that no one talks about that I'm bringing up, they're very real. And some of the other DOs and other individuals like myself, defectors, that was the main thing. That was, once you got all the anxiety and stuff out of the way and you hit this yard, you got to accept the fact now that there's degenerates. And I'm not talking about dropouts. I'm talking about people who done certain things. And it's not always, rape or molesting or something weird like that. There's other stuff that they do. Kidnappers, high profile people, stuff like that. You know what I mean? And even when I went to 50/50 and SMY yards, you got to understand that just because you go into that, there's PC within PC, you know, the Suge Knights, and then you have actors or you have high profile people that made the news. They keep them in separate places. I believe Mule Creek
Donovan,
or
right?
and Donovan are one of the hardest places to get into. You know what I mean? You got to be really, really high powered, super
Yeah,
high powered.
exactly.
And then and IG told me that you know what I mean, it's cake over there, but you either got to have a Buck Rogers date, or once you're done with your state time, you're going in federal witness protection to get to those places. That's how even keeled it was. You know what I mean? And once I understood that and I got to where I went, you know what I mean, I seen a lot of familiar faces. And I'm not going to mention them because they've gotten at me, in text message, whatever, not to, a lot of them are out. They're not in the area like myself. Everybody's scattered around. And, but unfortunately, I'd say out of we use a percentile of 100%, there's only 9% of us that are doing good. The rest of these guys are caught up. They're homeless or transient. It's just really no help. You know what I mean? For that. And then as a man, who can you go to ask for help? We're taught not to share our feelings. When you go through all this stuff and you defect, it's nothing but feelings after that you're caught
I
up
know.
in. You know what I mean? So some of us turn to alcohol, some of us turn to drugs, some of us turn to sex and cheating on our families and running out there and thinking living in a tent and running is the answer. And I've never run from anything in my life. You know what I mean? Other than when people are blasting at me or shooting at me. But for the most part, I faced everything head on, which has been my blessing and my curse. It's why I've got 20 years in the system. 7 the first time, 4 violations, and 10 on this last one. And that's not something I'm proud of. That's something that the feelings come up as I'm never going to get that back.
It's factual though. It's your truth. It's your story. So like people need, if in order for them to understand you and where you're coming from, they need to understand what you've been through.
Yeah.
You get
And
what I'm
that's the,
saying?
and that, yeah, exactly, man. And that was the biggest thing I had to go through. So that first year, it probably wasn't until I got to Tehachapi where I was around more of uh, dudes like my, what I mean, I'm talking about guys from Fresno and Sureños, guys that were my age that have been around. We all recognize each other from the Guerra days, right?
Yeah.
But there was that common respect. And the one thing I learned is that common respect when I was in the shoe, the courtesy of passing things, yeah, once in a while, depending upon who the RC is, we get drunk together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And pass things and then have conversations or whatever. And that professionalism, man, your enemigas remember that. And they remembered that. I thought for sure, man, I was going to catch another case because I was going to run into somebody I removed, or I was going to run into somebody's relative or whatever it is. And you know what? At that time, I was so caught up in my feelings and there was so much anger. There's nothing like an ex-NF member or NR member who's good with weapons and he's not afraid to get rushed or stabbed. That's a dangerous individual. You know what I mean? Because you got nothing to lose. You've lost everything. You have no more plight. You're stuck in your own feelings. You're trying to figure out who you are as an individual.
So you feel like you were at your rock bottom, even though you were trying to make your change. You still feel like you're at your rock bottom.
I didn't know who to trust.
Yeah, I
You know what
get
I
that.
mean?
I don't think I'm gonna touch on this because you just mentioned that. I think it was harder for me after I left that life than it was right before I made that choice. You know what I'm saying? The first,
Absolutely.
it was a lot more harder, and because it becomes a reality, and then you start to second guess yourself, and you don't feel anybody understands you because you feel like you're alone in this. Because this is the path that you're taking. This is the cross that you have to carry. That's how I felt. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yeah.
I felt like no one could relate, no one could understand, none of that, man. And so it was hard, man. So I fed myself dope for years based
Yeah.
upon the self medicate because I couldn't get over my own reality. So I get it,
Yeah.
brother. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
let's go into I really want to eventually get into the second part, which is your life today. But let's touch a little bit about how the SNYs operate. You know what I mean? A little bit of your experience on those yards, Northern Riders, 2-5ers, all those different groups.
You know, I guess the homie hangout was right. If you sit back and look, I watched this spill. I mean, and I appreciate that, and I love how he puts things together himself. They're probably they could very well be. I mean, if things flip around, those gangs will probably be the next part of the big four, or the fifth, right? Because I'm not saying anything against them and not saying anything for them. I understand. And I mean, I don't know if you know what I mean when I say that. I understand why a lot of them that I knew personally flipped that way once my situation happened. You know what I mean? It's always, what they say, it's always fun and games until it involves you or yours, right? And now that I suffered being forced out, and then having not only that, but having to deal with, man, these dudes were gonna whack me or try to anyway. For what? You know, and just because I wouldn't keep my mouth shut, that mental anguish there, and then you realize you're not the only one. You know, you're not the only one, and some of these guys, they still believed in that. There was a lot of people that carried themselves, and conducted and carried themselves well, but they had that chip on their shoulder, and they want to be a part of something, and they weren't ready to lay it down. Now I don't know if that holds true to why they were involved and what they. I don't know. Just like when I was on the line, I ain't gonna ask a BGF member why did you join. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna ask even another NR member. Hey, when did you decide that this? You know, that's Flaco, that's Rojo, that's Gunner. These are oh hey, and that's it. It's love right off the top. You know what I mean? What's up? What do we got to do? And then you start exchanging information, and they're your brothers. You don't question it. So
Yeah.
for me to sit there and have conversations with these dudes, I never was approached. You know what I mean? It was hinted at, but they knew. You know what I mean? They all knew, and they respected the fact because they knew the story too. A lot of them were active, or a lot of them were inactive, or they knew who Alicia was. San Jose is a big city, but it's also small. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean? And the way the things operated there was those were the guys that they ran and they cleaned up their own mess. And I stayed out of the way. There was just a few individuals, ex-upstaters, dudes from down south, I mean, that I was in Corcoran with that were ex-MA associates. I mean, a lot of those Southsiders, man, and I'll just say this, and that was the level of comfortability that I had, is because I knew what time it was with these dudes, and they knew it was, and we just wanted to get out and go home and put this behind us. So we spread, we kicked it, we selled up, we did our own thing and worked out, paid our respects, played ham, I mean, did what we could do, Sometimes it's a little bit more fucked up over there. You don't get the yard. It feels like you're on the main line because 50-50 and SNY gets the shit into the stick when it comes to program. You know what I mean? If they're short staffed or if something goes down, they lock us down first, and then they go. You know what I mean? And they go over to the active yards and see what was happening there. You know what I mean? And everybody pretty much stays in their own lane. There's just a lot of dope that goes around, a lot of frivolous activities. You know what I mean? It's a mixture of people that have never been on main lines. I come to realize that as well.
Yeah.
Some of them go SNY from the gate, so they conduct and carry themselves a certain way. But you could always tell. I mean, there's 5 or 6 buildings on in the facility, and there's always that one. Hey, this is where you want to get to
Yeah.
for reasons. Well, everybody, it's clean. Everybody conducts. Hey, there's no trash. And it's the ironic thing, well, people looking at this, like, fuck, well, you're trash too. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm trash of a different light. You know what I mean? I'm not a deviant, and I
Yeah.
caught more time when they tried to sell me up with someone from Sanho who was a homeboy who did some
Yeah,
unfavorable things to his stepdaughter. You know what I mean? And I didn't hesitate to put hands. And that's not me
that's right.
being a badass. That's just me. I will not forgive those transgressions.
Never can, bro. Never can, man.
And you know
Never
what I mean?
can.
And look in my eye. I will never forgive those transgressions. I let the fact Alicia's gone. She's no longer here. She's in a better place. But what happened to her happens to young girls all the time. I see about these kidnappings and these sex crimes, and people say, how could you justify you're a criminal? You're just like them. No, the fuck, I'm not.
Nope, you're not.
Grown men and grown women make the choices to buy dope. They get in favor with the NR and the NF. And you know what, man? You make your bed, you lie in it, like the rest of us. It's the cost of doing business. Now, if you don't like that life or you don't like what I have to say, then you could find another channel and go somewhere else. Because if you think that I'm going to protect or I'm going to forgive because I have God in my life, look what's going on around you in the world. Everybody caters to these dudes because they believe it's a sickness, more so of a sickness than an alcoholism or drug addiction. But it ruins little girls and little boys' lives. And they, 9 times out of 10, what happened? You want to be scientific about it? They grow up to be what, Flaco? Abusers themselves.
Yes, sir. You know what I
So
mean?
where does the cycle stop? So that was the line that I drew. But then again, you know, I caught 9 months behind that assault. And when I went to the board, they really didn't have too much to say when they released me back out to the yard for the hole. They just said, Estridge, CC3, she told me, she's like, I understand your feelings. Lord knows we all have kids. And your story is right here in your C file, your charges and everything else, and what your gang did to you. And I thought I was going to get this big old lecture like, you deserve what you got coming because, this is your pat. No, they were on my side, but they let me know the laws of the land are always going to take precedent over one's feelings and one's heart
Yeah,
in
it's
order
true.
to have order and direction. Because if we all went off and did vigilantism, you know, yeah, in our minds, the world would be a better place. But then you make other people suffer, and I got to remember that every victim that I've had, even the dude, even the POS that did what he did to Alicia, he still had a family. And I can't imagine what his mother, who's still alive, what she has to go through with her only son, having to come to terms with that every day she wakes up, that he's a degenerate rapist piece of what. You know what I mean? More so over. And as a parent myself, what can you do in a situation if your child ends up that way? So see, these are all the things
Man,
that I
you know
got.
what, that's a good point right there, man. And
I mean, what do you do?
honestly, I don't even want to say it, man. I don't even
Yeah,
want to say it, bro. I can't accept it from anybody. Period. Period.
yeah.
You
It
know what I'm
would go
saying?
along
And,
those lines, man, where
you know what I'm saying?
you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You know
Still,
what I mean?
and there's still certain morals and stuff like that. When it comes to stuff like that, man, I mean, I caught one slipping one time, man. Out years later, man, it was bad. It was bad business, bro. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Absolutely.
so at this point in your life, you know what I'm saying? You're set to go home pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
You did 10 years, 8 months, right? What was it like stepping out fresh, newly for the first time? No longer with that obligation, no longer with that status. Where was your mind out? Where were you going?
I remember the first time I paroled. I mean, like I said, this wasn't my first rodeo. All the times I paroled was always, there was a 7-year sentence the first time, and then the 4 violations after that were nine, with at least the amount of one was 9 months. And this is the longest consecutive stretch I did, 10 calendars. I felt completely different. I remember I used to that last month I used to just pray when I was at, man, please, you know what I mean? In my back of my mind, I just want to go home. I want to get out of here. You get
You
tired of
did.
politicking, but you can't
Yeah.
say that. And this time I remember pre-release came about 30 days. I got the ducking under the door, and then it really didn't hit me. And I remember my cellie was just like, "Hey, what's that? You got to pass?" I said, "No, man." I says, "It's pre-release." It's like, "Damn, man, already?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." Man, you're not excited? Not really. I was at that point, Flaco, where it had been so long. Of course, not compared to some of these dudes that have been down 20, man, but 10's a big stretch.
That's a
And
stretch, bro. A lot of things change in 10 years.
yeah, exactly, man. And I hadn't been keeping up with what was going on in the Bay. I didn't care. I was doing programs. I was trying to get acclimated. I got an associate's degree through correspondence, from
I know.
Sacramento College, junior college up in Sac, and I just applied myself because I had the time. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
had the time. I didn't hang out in the day
People
room.
don't realize that when you're active in the prison politics and stuff and
Yeah,
pushing that line, that there's no opportunity for you to take advantage of the things that are there in prison to offer.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And
And if you're about bettering your people, how many people actually have the time to take advantage of the things that they offer? Nobody
yeah,
does, man. They're more too worried about other stuff. You know what I'm
and a
saying?
lot of and you probably didn't realize you had access that everybody's assigned a counselor, right? If you want
Oh yeah.
something,
Them
an
CC
issue.
ones?
Yeah, CC1. So when you're active, fuck, you don't use that shit. You know what I mean?
Oh man.
So now I had it, and
Unless you want to OSIM review to see what's in your file.
yeah, exactly. So when I went to that hearing, so I can get out of the hole, she was there, and she just says, "Hey, anything I'm on the yard these certain days, man. Just drop me a kite." And she kind of winked and laughed, and I said, "Yeah, drop you a kite." And she goes, "You need to get over the fact. You need to take advantage of. There's so much stuff out there. You're gonna have to go back to Santa Clara County, but there's so many things." She's the one that told me about the reentry center. I'm a reentry center. She goes, "Yeah, there's this." She goes, "Listen, just drop me a kite and we'll come in and talk for about 30, 45 minutes. I'll let you know." I says, "Yeah, but I still got a few years left here." And she goes, "Well, what do you want to do? Vocational? You want to do this? You want to do that?" And I says, "I got action at all that." She goes, "You got action at anything you want." She goes, "You just have to be a go-getter." She
We
goes, "You
never
want to
had
be
these.
like,
We never had these chances though, bro. They never took the time at all, man. Like ever.
you know what I mean?" I was just happy with being on yard duty, cleaning up the yard when everybody got, you know what I mean? Just like janitorial.
Yeah.
But, the homeboys told me, "Nah, bro, you know what I mean? Fuck, man, take advantage." Dudes were doing auto mechanics and computer science and all this other stuff. And like, it blew my mind, all the programs that were available,
Yeah. Most
and that
definitely.
kept, once I got out, man, then the homie JoJo, what I mean, that brother from another mother, he hit the yard about a year and a half later. And, and he jumped right into the mix, and I mean, and I was able to do what I did when he was a young Norteño coming off of his BS and all that other stuff, cleaning up and then becoming an NR member himself. The same way, the schoolings and teachings, everything I had, I gave him was the same thing. It was like, there's that pivotal moment you talked about, came full
Yeah.
circle. He comes over to SMY. I'm 18 months in, you know, let my hair grow out. It's braided, I'm just clean and all this and that. And I got a smile on my face. And hey, man, I'll see you. He goes, "School? Where you know what I mean?" He's like, what's happening here? How do I? And then I was able to just guide and teach him and took advantage, man. And now he's been out longer than me. You know what I mean? And he works for the county that he lives in, and he's a counselor. He went back to college, man, and he got his KDAC and a few other things, but he don't like dealing with adults. He deals with the youngsters, the young men and
That's
women.
right.
He feels
Sometimes
that
that's our
it's
future. That's right.
yeah, and he runs into a lot of people that you and I know, they're kids that are going through stuff, man, and he's held in high regard as far as what he's doing and how he's changed his life. He don't like getting on here. He listens and he gets on silently once in a while, but he's one of those individuals, man. When he went home in 2018, he sent me a kite and he just says, "You know what, bro? I'm gonna leave the eagle on my back, but I'm getting the dots taken off. I'm getting the Welga bird off of my stomach, and it ain't gonna be JoJo no more. It's just gonna be Joey." You know what I mean? And I'm moving out of the way, and I'll keep in touch with you. But he kind of put me in my place. He goes, but if you start fucking around, man, and kicking it and getting back into all that other stuff, homie, he's like, I got to think about myself. I love you. I don't have no regrets, but I'm really going to fly straight. This time right here scared me and everything. He goes, I know what I'm capable of, and I also know what I can't do anymore. He goes, and now I got an opportunity to make things right. He goes, I lost a lot like you did, and I got to find my way. And there was one hand washing the other. Getting that kite from him when he went home a couple of years before I did made me realize, okay, everything I'm doing in here, am I just really, am I subconsciously just doing it till I get out and then I'm gonna act a fool? I had no inkling, and I had none of that stuff. So a couple of years passed, and that week I went home on a Wednesday, and that last weekend, it was hot. You know what I mean? It was the Memorial weekend. It was May, and I didn't tell anybody. I went out and I still did the same routine. I didn't start promising like TVs and clothes and this and that. I just kind of secretly, like Santa Claus, I left certain things. I got all the paperwork to leave certain things to who I was gonna leave with, and I pat everything, man, in a little tiny shoebox, just paperwork and pictures. That's it. 10 years worth of stuff. Everything else, man, like JoJo had said, 2 years, I'm leaving everything behind. I didn't,
Yeah.
no shirts, no CDC, no jackets, no boots, no, not even a palm comb. I was leaving it all behind. And I was like this because you don't realize that you hate it so much, but it's part of your makeup. It's part of who we
Yeah.
are. We're
Yeah. Agree.
convicts, you
Yeah.
know, and that's no pun intended towards convicts' perspective. It's the truth. We're convicts, and we're always going to be
It's
that.
convicts always, man. I mean, I think people don't realize that a true convict, right?
Yeah,
Um, there's a difference between like, I mean, different layers to that. I mean, a convict is someone who has lived that lifestyle, knows how to conduct themselves, and studies, is intelligent, knows how to wiggle, knows how to make moves, knows how to work around staff without exposing their game.
yeah,
Those things right there, man, when you're a convict, man, are some of the most intelligent people because we're so manipulative around things, man, that we can come out there and apply those skills at times, man. And that's
yeah,
what I noticed with myself is when I got out, my PR skills and so forth, and my interactions from leadership skills, from holding positions and from delegating authority to other people and so forth. The first couple times I was out when I was active, I wasn't applying those skills in the work field. I wasn't applying those things to do anything good or positive for me. It was all about criminal activities. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
now, I'm saying, since I finally woken up in the last 6 years, I've been able to apply all the things that I learned on YouTube, on this platform, to try to help guide and convey a positive message. So, in a lot of ways, the things that we did learn are still inside me, but the good things, I'm saying, the things
yeah,
that we uphold that are righteous, that, I mean, the things that we were taught in the plight, but that don't always occur, man. So I
yeah,
get that. I mean, you know, when I hear your story, man, your story is one of the most powerful ones that I've ever heard. What you went through, what you've overcame, and where you're at today, man. Let's go
yeah,
into that, man. I want to go into where you're at today, how these first 4 years of being out of custody, how they have gone for you, and where you're at. This is real important for the listeners out there, man.
yeah. So when I came home, I elected to take the Gray Goose. Pair of shorts, slingshot, and a white T-shirt, man. And I got into Bakersfield, got an Obama phone, and a couple numbers that I had, I memorized. I was able to call and say, "Look, man, I'm gonna be over here," and that's when I found out, hey, San Jose ain't got a Greyhound station no more, Toko. So where are you gonna go? I'm like, really? I'm like, well, how about? He goes, well, the nearest one is Gilroy. I'm like, well, shit. All right. So I got over there, man, and a brother from another mother who him and his wife wrote letters for me and kept in touch with me and would send me things during the holidays, man. Was kind enough to take the day off and he picked me up, man. I mean, it took about 6, 7 hours to get up there because the Greyhound, but I finally got back on Wednesday night and it just felt like the world had changed so much that I was unrecognizable,
Yeah, I
not
get
only to
that part.
myself,
Yeah.
but you got to remember that all the youngsters that I knew, man, they're now in their mid 20s and it's just a whole different world. You know what I mean? But far be it removed, man. I didn't have nobody to report to. I didn't have nothing. I had everything had set up. You know what I mean? With his programs and stuff, and I stayed the night at my boy's house, and he's just like, listen, man. He goes, take my son's car. He's out of town, and I went down and renewed my license, and just had to pay a fee or whatever, and
Yeah.
the one thing is, man, they don't give you cash anymore. They give you a debit card.
Oh yeah.
That's got your money on it. So I went down there to Gilroy DMV, made sure I was legit, and then went to parole that next morning in the car, and then I went through the rigmarole with that, and met my agent, and she was cool. She just says, tell me you're not homeless. Tell me you ain't got no drug problems or alcohol problem. I says, no. She goes, do you have a plan? And I had my little manila folder. I got to report to this program today. I got to sign up for this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go stay in a THU. And after that visit, she took pictures of my tattoos and everything else. And in the beginning, she just really didn't care because, I'm just another dude on her caseload. She just says, all right, Toko. She's, I'm going to call you Toko until you earn Joseph. She told me that. She goes, to me, this is who you are. What's on paper is who you are. You know what I mean? You did what you had to do, but you still broke the law. And in my eyes, you know what I mean? A lot of you guys come out, and she gave me her spiel. And I didn't argue and I didn't get offended. She basically told me, all you ex dudes get out, man. You feel sorry for yourself. You go out, you commit other crimes, and you go right back. So you got to earn my respect, and you got to earn. And you want to show me you want housing, you want to show me you want help, you know make you know what I mean make show me you're worthy. I says, all right. And she's like, you're not going to argue your point? I said, absolutely not. And I made all my appointments, and of course, when you do all that and you're on parole, they notify, hey, Toko was here,
Yeah.
he showed up on this and that, and then the following week I went back. She treated me a little different, and then a little different. I still, I still had the SSU tail and high control, but because of my situation, I always would think, man, am I gonna have to get him up at the parole office, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody got to report there. But I never ran into anybody. Maybe I never had any issues, man. Like I said, the biggest misconception is unless you put your business out there, unless people know you directly, they ain't gonna know who you are.
So
You know.
Toko, I was thinking right now, right? I only have a few more minutes left. I think we
Okay.
should do a third part to this interview where we go from now that you're out in the streets to today.
Okay.
Because I don't want
Yeah.
to rush this too fast because right now you're really elaborating everything good. I was just thinking right now because I only got really about 7 or 8 minutes
Okay.
left. So I think we should do a third part next week if you're up for that.
Yeah.
As opposed to me trying to rush you, I don't want to rush you off. You know what I mean? Like, because I
Yeah.
know that there's a lot of details that need to go on this, man. So
Yeah.
for the last few minutes, man, I want to address basically what was your thinking process that day when you stepped out the gate, man? Like, did you have a plan before you got out?
Absolutely. For the first time in my life, I did. I was all that pride went out the window, and the homies that were in there, and the counselors that I talked to, and the teachers and stuff like that. Man, I really integrated myself and used what I had up here
Yeah.
to practice these interviews and my socialization skills, because I knew that was going to be detrimental. The way I look, I'm all inked up from head to toe, sleeve down, and I don't
I mean,
dress
but
like
you're a classic Nuestra Raza member. I don't think people realize, man, like the way you carry yourself, your vocabulary and all that.
yeah.
Believe it or not, that's more typical of an NR member than it is of an NF member. I don't
I've
think
been
people
told
realize that, man.
before. Yeah,
Huh?
yeah, yeah. I've been told that before. But you remember, you went through it. You were part of it. You were a teacher. You were an educator.
Yeah.
You
It's
know,
it
you
it's it's
know
it's
all that paperwork, man. And like I said it before, you could probably count on 10 toes and fingers how many homeways backed out of the class shop because it was just too much.
yeah,
You know what
exactly.
I mean?
I don't think people realize that like to be where we're at with our intelligence, that took a lot of practice. That took a lot of hard work. It's just that we misapplied it for all these years, man. Like, so, me focusing on that, man, I'm glad that you had a plan, because for as intelligent as I was in a lot of aspects, I never had a plan. My plans were about making money. My plans were about setting up shop. My plans were about this, man. So, I think in the last part of the interview, I want to go through the parts of you working up until we met on YouTube, and the final closure of Alicia for you, bro. I'm saying, I don't want to rush this too much, because I know this last part is going to be it's going to be very serious, and you guys are all going to want to hear that out there, man. Much love to Toko. Is there anything you want to say to anybody out there before we end this interview today?
Just I appreciate all the support. You know what I mean? And I just hope that my story, my life, the only reason why I'm doing this is to help other men and women that are out there. Regardless about how you feel for me, how this, that, whatever, man, you know what I mean? Get over that and listen to the message. Because the situation might not happen to your old lady or your daughter, but similar stuff can happen to you, to where you find yourself at a crossroads in life where you think that you believed in something and people believed in you, and you felt everything to the T, not without your faults or whatever, because we fall short every day, but just the betrayal that happens afterwards. What would you do in that situation? I know what a lot of people say they would do, but for me, the message is you got to look out for yourself first and foremost. If you look out for yourself, you love and you care about yourself and you respect yourself, then how you treat others will fall in line. That love you have for somebody else and that loyalty, all your teachings and whatever you learned, if you held yourself in high regard, which a lot of homies and homegirls do, then pull from that, turn that negative into something positive, and I guarantee you'll find love, you'll find happiness. Do the things that you don't want to do now so you can do the things that you want to do later.
Program over the 10 years that I was gone, they started this thing called Reentry Center, right? And it's supposed to help out individuals, that want the help. And then through that, without getting into a big long story about that, I was able to get into a halfway house, or THU is what they call them now. And then things just kind of flowed from there. I basically had to get my identity, man. I had to go get a license. I had to go, when you're gone 10 calendars, man, that was a long time, and that was the longest stretch that I had ever done. You know what I mean? I hadn't seen the streets, man, since 2008. And here it is, the end of 2019, almost 2020. You know what I mean? So a lot's happened in the last 3 years. But,
sorry for interrupting. This is 2018 you got out?
2019.
2019 you got out. Okay, this is going to be great for you guys.
So, Jojo got out in 2018. He got out about a year before I did, man. And I told you guys that in the last story, which way his life went, man. So it was a lot of struggles, man, because I'm not used to living. I never lived in a dorm type of setting, but in that THU, man, you got 3 fucking bunks. You got 3 dudes in there, and there was a homeboy that I ran into, man, at the bus stop over there, man. I didn't even have a car yet, man. So I was just tripping out on how downtown San Jose had looked when it's probably should have been looking over my shoulder, but after all that time, bro, I didn't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? I was free. I was out. There was plenty of other dudes running around that reentry seven. Life was just, I had to get used to life being 100 miles an hour now, instead of being stuck in the 90s, man, being locked up. That's what it seemed like. And, it didn't really hit me, man, until they told me they weren't going to be able to have, I paroled on a Wednesday, man. They weren't going to have a bed for me till maybe Friday or that Monday. And they said, do you have a place to stay? So I called up my brother-in-law, man, who stayed in Lomas. And he's like, man, when did you get out? I said, man, I said, I got out this morning, man. I said, but I just touched down, this afternoon. And I said, I need a place to stay for a couple of days. I said, it's going to be for a couple of days. I said, I got a spot. Yeah. So got to see the family. I hadn't seen the family in 10 years, you know what I mean? And the interesting thing about all that was that it was very standoffish, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely.
Very, very, and this is the big part of the story, man, that, it doesn't get told when people talk about their past, man, is that what you do in your life when you're living that life affects you and yours big time. So the whole freaking, American me or bound by honor coming home and fucking getting tacos and then picking up where you left off, it was more like, what I mean? Good to see you. What are you going to do? Where are you going to stay? They were, what I mean? I just felt like this. All right. What I mean? And I got that coming. They didn't know where I stood. They didn't know that my career was over, that I had dropped out. They didn't, what I mean? They didn't know. That's not something you put down on paper and you write a letter, you talk over the phone about. I went through all those trials and tribulations on my own. And the familia that I left behind, no pun intended, when I left, when I left the institution where I was at, man, those were the brothers, from Fresno, from down south, and a lot of ex-carnales and a lot of ex-Bs that were there, man. They knew the struggle. They knew we had each other to bounce stuff off of. I mean? Those of us that didn't get involved in the S&Y politics, you know what I mean? So now that's gone. That element's gone. I'm on my own. You know what I mean? It's Wednesday night, and I'm sitting in my brother's garage, man, and that's when it all hit me. Now life is going to show up, and it's going to, it's going to show apart. So eventually I showed up to that THU, and I reported, and, you know what I mean? It's kind of picked up where I left off, just like when I was active, man, early to rise, early to bed. Once I got the program down, you're not working. You got to be out of the house before 8 o'clock. You can't come back no sooner than 4 o'clock. I'm gone. You know what I mean? And then they shot me to a house in Mipas, in your hood. There was a THU over there with through Pathways. You know what I'm saying? which was kind of cool, man, because it wasn't too far away from the Great Mall, and then it wasn't too far away from some of the industrial areas that were there in Fremont. You know what I mean? And within a week, I had a ride. And I just, for the first time, man, I didn't have anything hanging over my shoulders. Didn't have any obligations. Didn't have to find out where any C's were, if there was any B's, just to let them know, hey, another Armano's out. You need my assistance. Here's my number, this and that. There was no more obligation and nothing but myself. So, I reached out to my kids. I reached out and just, I kept myself busy, man. I got out on a Wednesday, bro. I was working by the following Tuesday for a landscaping company from a dude that I had met at the outpatient that I had to go to in order to stay inside the THU. You have to go to certain classes. They don't force meetings or nothing like that on you anymore, but you gotta be enrolled in something and then show proof of that. Get the slip signed, and then everything now, man, is through text message and email. Whether or not you show up, you can't fake the funk no more, man. Besides, I wasn't anyway, man. I was on another level of what I was trying to do, and my plight was totally different, and I just flipped everything that I learned, as a Nuestra Raza member and all the bonds and everything, and I just said, okay, now's my chance to put everything that we learned that we're supposed to do when we got out the first time, you know what I mean? The movement and everything else. Okay, now I'm going to do it. Now I got to get back in my kids' lives. Now I got to make amends. Now I got to do all this other stuff. And I'm going to tell you straight up, Flaco, I didn't like it because it brought up feelings and anxieties, man. And I still had a violent streak just because I had defected, and just didn't make me no punk or no, a pushover. I'm going to walk away from shit. I didn't know how I was going to react. You know what I mean? The last DA referral I had gotten was just a few years earlier than that, so there was a lot of things that I stayed away from a lot of people and situations, especially going to meetings and all that other stuff that a lot of the guys wanted to go to, just for the fact of, being around all them type of people all the time. I don't know how I was going to react. I knew I had to ease into it. I knew that much about myself that I had to ease back into everything, man. And so I met somebody at work, man, and it was a summertime, and they hire a bunch of these weed whacking crews, man, on the side of the freeway to make these little 10-yard breaks for fire prevention, right? So that's what I did all summer, bro. what I mean? And just got super dark, man, and super grateful, man. And I was sunrise to sundown. You know what I mean? It didn't pay great, bro, but within a couple of weeks, man, you know what I mean? I already had some money for myself and stuff like that, man. And, that went on for a couple of months. You know what I mean? They give you 90 days and then they give you another extension. And, I had signed up for all these, different type of sliding scale programs.
Yeah.
Me being a single dude and not having no little kids, it would take me 2 or 3 years to get on the housing list as a single man. So, I was able to utilize all the programs that were afforded to me at that time. Breakout Prison Ministries was one of them. You know what I mean? One of the dudes whose brother is active, I'm not going to say what his name is. One of the guys there was a mentor and he was a counselor. And I was able to get on his caseload. And he was able to direct me to he knew what I was trying to do. He knew about the case. He knew about Alicia. You know what I mean? It was big news within certain circles. And, he did everything he could to help me out. He just says, man, if I give you these referrals to these programs, you know what I mean, to help you get clothes or to help you get job skills or to help you get housing, I need to know you're going to show up because it's my name that's on the line now. You know what I mean? And you're so big and bad with everything that you used to be. Let's see what kind of man you are now that you're on your own.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's no disrespect. He goes, but I'm just saying, I get a lot of you dudes, man, that leave that life behind or come out here and you got drug at you or you're trying to hide from people. And then you take advantage, man. And then I give you these referrals that are precious referrals because it takes away resources from people who really need it. And then you go and you fuck it off.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, damn, bro. You know what I mean? He goes, at the risk of a punch in the mouth, Toko, I said, man, I hit you. I'm gonna go to prison forever. But I ain't never heard it raw like that, man. When I just walked in your door to ask for help, I feel what you're saying. Don't fuck off these opportunities. I got you. So all those fears and anxieties, bro, and for an individual like myself, I had the verbal skills on paper when I was holding kleshas and when I was in small group settings and stuff like that to get my point across without raising my voice, explaining what a C would tell me, hey, man, let these dudes know this is what's happening, breaking down wheelas, doing everything that we're supposed to do. Now I got to do it for myself.
Yeah.
And that may sound weird to people who are watching or listening right now, man, but we're used to doing everything that you do for everybody else, for the brothers, so to speak, right? For the cause, the momento, all that other stuff. It ain't about you, man. It's about the machina. It's about the wheel that keeps turning. It's about our plight. No individualism. Remember that?
Individualism, bro.
Now I got to flip all that around and make it about this individual because if I don't, who's gonna help me? I got to help myself. And what the driving force behind everything was that I put myself in the fucking situation that I was in. No old lady, no family, 10 years gone. Don't know where Alicia's at. Don't know where Regina's at. I didn't want to bother Jojo because he'd been out for a year and a half and I hadn't heard nothing. All I heard when I asked from another fellow, person that we kept in contact, they just said, he's good. You know what I mean? He's in an undisclosed area right now, man. He said he'll get at you when he's got some time. And I knew why Jojo did that because he wanted to see where my head was going to go. Because I didn't know the year prior that he got out, he came to Sanho first in 2018. You know what I mean? And he said it was a free for all. You know what I mean? That when he tried to stay in the THUs and stuff like that, he was chunking them with certain individuals, other deals and defectors because they forgot who they were and they got into the dope and they got scandalous and they became just like everybody else out there, right? And he couldn't be in a home and conduct and carry himself like that. So, he bounced out of the area and he had a couple kids himself and just kind of buried himself out there and didn't tell nobody where he was at. Not because he was scared, I found out later on, but it was just that scared him. How in the fuck is Toko going to react a year and a half later when he comes home? Am I going to join that? If I can't beat him, join him. But, I didn't do it inside the joint. I wasn't going to fall victim to that out there, man. So, every time I had to go in for an interview, anytime I had to go to one of these programs, you know what I mean, to get a little further ahead in life, man, I had to constantly do a little bit of extra to talk for mine, simply because they see my background and what I was involved in and all the other BS, and they don't want to touch it. That's, you know, and that's the truth of it. They don't get guys like you and I to walk in there, man, you know, or anybody who was more high powered than I ever was, right? But just the fact that, you know, you don't have these little things on your jacket. You got, you know, part of disruptive group, organized crime, under investigation for this. Everything is there, especially when they go, okay, well, we'll get your file from the parole part, you know what I mean, just to verify what you're saying. And then they just, you got to come in for a second interview, you know, before you do all this. And, you know what I mean? And certain felonies now disqualify you. Just being a felon, you can't get into certain apartments or certain places. You know what I'm saying? And it ain't because you got weird charges. It's just because you got a felony, period. They don't want anybody there. Misdemeanors are okay. But if you're a felony, they feel you're going to bring a certain element, right? So 2 months of all that, man. And I finally went to my PO, man, and I told her, SSU parole.
Ooh, I hated them, bro.
You know what I mean? And they used
to follow me, bro, undercovers all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And every time I would go down to the office, her little partner would come through, and he'd always drop these little lugs, be like, "Hey, man, nice ride." So who was the? And there's always one of them POs that always got to try to talk like they're a homie, right? Hey, who's that? I know you were with, bro. And I'm turning around, I'm thinking, and here's this dude with this fucking vest on, or whatever. And then she's just like, "Oh yeah, this is my partner." You know what I mean? He doesn't trust you very much. You know, he doesn't believe what you say. He still thinks that whatever. He still thought I was playing the game. Or like, shit, man. Obviously, man, you know what I mean? He didn't read the file too extensively, man. So she's like, you know, so what do you think? You've been out for a couple months. What's going to happen? I said, you know what? I had talked to Jojo already, and like I said, he bounced out of town, and he was able to get his transfer. And he told me what the steps that I need to go through to do that, man. And I decided to, I got a hold of some family that was out of state, you know, and my kids were there, you know, and I had seen my kids a couple months earlier when I had come home, and for, you know, for reasons that.
How old are your kids? I don't mean to interrupt you, but how old are your kids now?
At the time, they're adults, you know what I mean? I got one that's a preteen right now, you know what I'm saying? And they were out there, and, you know, I had always had the fatherly instincts, right? But I had always counted on their mother to take care of them, because she knew what kind of man that I was. Finances, I always took care, you know what I mean? And had no child support, was never behind on nothing. You know what I mean? If I had $20, they got 15 out of it. And that's not me putting myself on a pedestal. That's just the way that I was raised and I was taught. I got $5 to get, a fucking soap on the soda. I'm good. They want McDonald's though. You know what I mean? So they get the majority. That's just the way it was. And there was certain homies that were around back then. You know what I mean? They remember that. And I just remember, man, I was just, you know, trying to make amends silently to them. And so I got an offer to go out of state and let my PO know what was happening, man. And she just looked at me, and she just kind of rubbed her chin. She pulled out my file, and I said, you know, man, whatever you got to do, you know what I'm saying? I said, I won't come back. Put that in my orders or whatever. I can't come back until I discharge. And I ended up leaving the state, man. And in 2019, man, and that was the best thing that I ever did. You know what I'm saying? I got to go out there and get custody of my kids, be out there with family members in the homeland state that I was born in Hawaii. I got to go back to my roots. You know what I mean? And I thought that at the time, that's what I needed. You know what I mean? I had been around this game since I was a kid. That's all I knew. I knew nothing else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard.
I was Tongan and Samoan, man, by blood only. You know what I mean? But I was Rasa by heart, and you know what I mean? I was a fucking homeboy to the fullest, and now all that's gone. So where's my identity? I mean, the last thing I am is a wannabe.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Last thing,
Perfect.
last thing I am is a wannabe. You know what I mean? CDC. You know, and my name is forever etched in stone with the plight that I chose to take when I politic. That can never be taken, regardless. And it wasn't, like I said before, man. It wasn't about you being full-blooded Mexicano or Chicano or anything else like that. It's if you believed and you felt you were oppressed and you believed in what the northern people were doing. You know what I mean? So we would have the right to have the yards. That's all it was in the end, man. You know what I mean? And just like certain individuals had just said, man, our issues were never with the Sureños. You know what I mean?
No.
It was with the big boys, not being oppressed by the big boys. And they just happened to be from down south, and they just happened to start with the letter M. You know what I mean? And then I found out later on, you know, as I got through my career, not getting off the track, man, but a lot of Sureños didn't, solid soldiers that I knew, man, they didn't believe in that plight. You know what I mean? A lot of them knew that a lot of the NF was started down south, that there was no lines back then. A lot of the heavy hitters that started the Constitution and all that. And so where those lines got drawn, it just happened to be our generation, where it was a north and south thing, you know. But like I tell people all the time, shit, man, I stopped being a Norteño in 1995. You know what I mean? When I took an oath to the NR. And that's what I became. You're no longer this. Gibby told me that, man. This is, yeah, you'll always be from up north, but that's not what this is about. This is what it's about. It's about those two phones over there. Those are ours. The blood, sweat, and tears that we got. It's about this line that we push, our tables, our part of the yard, our handball court, where we get to work out, just having a presence where we're at, and we're not having to look over our shoulder. This is why we do things in twos. This is why we do all these writings. This is why we do this klesha. This is why things are so militant, man, is to keep the law and order, but to also give you a place to break bread, Toko. You know? And you know what you went through it too, Flock. It gets, the ball and the picture gets painted, man. It gives me chills to think about how it was broken down to me, man, at 19 years old.
You know what though, bro? Like honestly, in the 90s, to be honest, there was a purpose, bro. We was out there fighting for those yards, and like this is all respect to everybody from down south and everything, man.
Absolutely, because,
man. You know, a lot of it was influenced by the big homies, but I mean, I had a place where they tried to tell me to cut off my Mongolian. It wasn't happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And or we have to do this, or we have to do that. It's like, hold on. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, it's not going to go down like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that time era changed though. By the time like I was already out of the picture, everything had already changed. It was no longer about any of that. There was a purpose back then, and you didn't just go to prison for some small crime. You had to be about that action. Yeah. You had to have done something serious. You were dealing with real convicts back then, man, like grown men.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just how the life was, man. Like, you know, but you're right though. We never had issues once we became NR, those Sarasa members and so forth. Our issues were never really with any Sureños.
No.
We were good. We stood against the Mexican mafia's oppression of our people. That's what it was.
And a lot of the brothers from down south in the rock, they felt the same way. You talk to some of the Sureños when I was in the shoe and in Corcoran, man, they felt the same way. It's like, man, you got no idea what we go through down south with these dudes.
Yeah, it's like because in our bylaws, if one hit the yard, we were supposed to take them out.
Yeah,
take them out. That was our whole agenda back then. Like, not no little slicing. We were supposed to try to take that win.
Yeah, no time.
No, but that's just a whole different. It's hard though because that's your past life, and I know where we're going.
Yeah.
But it's kind of sometimes it's more to venture off so people understand like this was a part of our life. This is what we did.
That's what
you know what I mean.
That's how it was. The picture was painted to me, and that's why I became what I became. Like I always say all the time, it's not about the war story, or I'm not glamorizing anything. I'm telling you why I was there, why I was involved in the first place, why I didn't fucking run. A lot of people, you know, well, you're Samoan, and you know what I mean. Well, here's the fact. It's what white dudes. There was Africanos that were in it. There was other Filipinos. There was a lot of other NR members that I had met over the years. Yeah, we were a minority, but you know what I mean? It was still our raza. That's how it was taught to me, and that's, you know what I mean? That could never be taken. But that was the attraction why I was there. And everything that I learned, once I learned how to flip all that negative back into the positive that I learned about that, man, is the life that I'm living now that's afforded to me. So going back to when I was overseas, man, and when I was out of state in Hawaii, man, I thought that was going to be the cure-all, right? I'm at the homeland. I'm back where I'm born. Fuck, man, I hadn't been there, man, since I was 5 years old. Before that, right? Because once we came to Cali when I was 5, it was less and less that we went back because inflation and plane tickets and stuff like that. And my family trying to get established in San Jose and all that, and and it just became ingrained in you. That's just what it was. I didn't give a fuck about.
Thank you, Doja.
And when I got there, man, and I had a chance to be there for my kids, get up, take them to school, get a job in the union out there, man, and do sheet metal or working on these big hotels out there, man. And the money was good, and but a lot of things happened too fast, Flaco.
Yeah.
Success, way too fast, way too quick, and it was way too prevalent. I mean, I had only been out, bro, not even 6 months, man, and I was already making enough money to get my own spot. And that's when it became real. And I would see my kids, and every day I come home, they're there now before they were never there. You know what I mean? Now I have this responsibility. Now, I seen it on Instagram today, man. You're responsible for your feelings no matter what. You're responsible for your actions no matter what your feelings are at the time, right?
Yep, that's true. I mean, and I realized that the other day. Trust me on that.
You know what I mean? And so every time I wanted to go and act a fool or start feeling bad for myself or start feeling like, man, when is it going to be about me, man? I looked at those kids and how happy they were to have me in their life and how happy they knew that dad's going to pick them up after school. I'm dirty because I'm dirty from work. There's money in the bank. There's food in the refrigerator. We got family to kick it with. There's a beach. You're surrounded by paradise. You know what I'm saying? But there was a lot of unresolved feelings, man. And, I left. For one, I took all these chances in trying to get my parole transferred. And then when it finally happened, I didn't think I had anything coming. And then the reality of it, it hit. And, like I said, I try to live my life out there, man. I try to, establish a strong hold and for my family and just let all that take over, but the money and the power and the prestige and having a little bit of things, man, that loneliness kicked in like a motherfucker. I missed Cali, I missed, and I didn't have social media, but I had Instagram, but I wasn't really on it too much. And certain individuals would come home and they would touch down. Their old ladies would shoot me a shot. Hey, so-and-so's out. And some homies that I got, like I said, I talked about it last time. I was in homeboy's wedding from La Puente. He paroled right before the pandemic hit. And he reached out to me, and we finally got to talk. And then we talked through Instagram. We exchanged, and he told me, "Where you at?" I'm in Hawaii, man. He's like, I said, "Where you going?" Man, I'm fucking back in La Puente. You know what I mean? I'm here because I just want to send my saludos out, man. I want to see how you're doing. I just told him, hey, man, I'm glad you're out, whatever. And then we would just bounce stuff off each other. He was having a hard time finding a job. And then, we started calling each other every day, texting, shooting pictures, FaceTiming. I got to see his future wife and then his kids. And before you know it, man, we're, a month.
Carnalismo. What you were lacking that we used to have in prison.
Yeah, exactly. And on here, this guy was supposed to be my enemy, but I had met him when we were both active in the corporate shoot. He was my vecino. You know what I mean? And we got to know each other. And, like when you're telling the stories about getting drunk and not getting fronted off, we had many times like that with them. And I would have to tell them, hey, don't throw my name out there, man. You're going to give me DP. But pass that shit. You know what I mean? Pass that fucking pruno, bro, man. Let's you know what I mean? And we just talked through the events and, and just, and there were some good dudes, man. You know what I mean? And I always would pray that, fuck, man, if these fucking doors pop, it's just business. But I would fucking pray that it didn't. And thank God it never did. You know what I mean? And none of those lines ever got crossed, man. And then that crossed over and he had a falling out, you know what I mean, on his behalf, not getting into his business. And then we ran into each other and then, we broke bread out there, man. A lot of of us that came from that life, man, we were able just to be who we were, right?
Be man. Be man and judge people, but judge people individually instead of by what they're associated with.
Fucking the Bulldogs felt the same way, man. A lot of, you know what I mean, the carnalismo. They all, you know, in some form or fashion, man, they always had elders or they had dudes that they looked up to when they were active that told them the same thing. You know, if the carnalismo was real, we'd all be together. But this is why we're separated. But then, you know, people go through what they go through, man, and they end up where they end up, right?
Yeah.
And we're all able to touch base after that. So me and this homeboy, we would just talk, man. And then he told me, he goes, man, you know what, Toko? I'm more closer to you. And I call you. He goes, I got home. I'm in my neighborhood. He goes, I got homeboys all around me, you know. And he goes, but fuck, man. He goes, I call you. I talk to you. We FaceTime. You know, we're just talking about life. And that's when it hit me. It's like, fuck. He's like, man, I just wish you were here closer, bro. He goes, I drive 4 or 5 hours to go up there, man, and break bread. I'm like, yeah, man. I'm about 3,000 miles away on a plane. And then it started to hit me. You know, like I started getting homesick. You know, I didn't have any outlets, Flaco, to.
Yes, that's hard. That's hard.
To talk to anybody or do anything. Everybody was in a different time zone. Oh, you got to remember, Hawaii's 3 hours behind anything on the West Coast. You know? So it's still daylight over there, man. And it started making me think. And then boom, Super Bowl happens and the fucking country goes on lockdown. Now, I don't know where you were during the lockdown, man, but being out on that fucking island, bro, it was like a bomb went off, man. You know what I mean? Looking out on the beach and not seeing a fucking single school.
I'm gonna elaborate on that for you because this is gonna be part of your story. You know what I'm saying? After like 5 years, around the time when that COVID started happening is when I first started dating, bro. After 5 years, it was around that time era. So I get it. I wasn't prepared. I was going through all those different trials and tribulations and trying to find myself and finally come to terms with what happened with my situation because it was a tough road, you know what I mean, to go through the things that I went through. And, you know what I mean, you know my reputation out there in the streets, you know what I'm saying, back then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to boast or anything, but I mean, I was not only a moneymaker, I was about that action out there. And to have that all like taken from me, it really affected me for years. And so I finally realized that, man, I was destroying myself because I missed that old lifestyle. I missed being that person. So, you know, I worked on myself for about 5 years, pretty much, bro, 4 years, 4.5 years. You know what I'm saying? And that's why when we get in the other part of the story as we come up, trust me, brother, I've been there too, bro.
Yeah. So the pandemic hits, man, and we go on that lockdown, and you know the kids are being homeschooled, and you know it took about a month to get acclimated into all that, and then you know then I'm at home, you know, and then watching TV, flipping through fucking YouTube, man, and then there's fucking Big Caja box, you know, Paradigm Media News. And then I seen the headline. I always wanted to get the book, but it was considered contraband, you know, where I was at. You couldn't get it, you know, because, you know, the CDC wanted, you know, they gave some they would just send it back, you know, but people would say, man, hey, man, I read the book. It was a good book. And, you know, but you can't get it and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And, you know, and his name was big. And it was right around that time period I got cracked. You know, when all that stuff was going on, you know what I mean? And so then I said, well, fuck, chapter, you know, I mean, I seen the chapter 3. I'm just like, what the fuck, is this the book? And so then I just, little by little, I started listening to him, man. And what do you know, man? He's narrating it, right? And so that was, and then that led to different channels, stories written by a current prisoner. You know what I mean? Then within a couple of months, you know, Mr. Late Night, Burning the Midnight Oil, Flaco's story was on there, the black screen. And then you started talking, you know, I mean, dropping out becomes personal. I remember again, it was like a few parts. And I'm just fucking thinking, you're telling the story. And I'm like, wow, man, this can't be the same dude. This can't be the homie, the big homie. You know what I mean? I said, shit, I lost Karen behind this. You know, what happened to your ex-wife? You know what I mean? The whole, nobody felt safe, man, once I'm fucking gonna dignify him, bring him up, but you know, it just felt like being back at home again. I'm just like, fuck, these vatos are starting to channel, So I started commenting a little bit here and there, you know what I mean? And then you guys are showing face more, and around that time, things started easing up a little bit, you know what I mean? I had met a female, on the job site that she worked at one of the hotels that we were working on, man. And, she always had a kind word and a smile and asked how the weekend was, right? So it was just chicken shit conversation one day, man. Before you know it, we're starting to go out and hang out, and she notices that my stilo is just not like the Hawaiians out there, right? She thought I was Mexican because what I mean, my mannerisms, the way I talk, certain ink work, what I mean, when we'd hang out and stuff like that, man. And she was planning on moving back to California. She didn't know she was going to go to San Francisco State or she was going to go somewhere down south, and so that was my first taste of trying to date, you know what I mean? And the pandemic, it really brought out the realism in certain people and how they deal with situations when you take their livelihood away, how they conduct and carry themselves. And unfortunately, she fell victim to that, to where she was paranoid, well, I want to come over, I want to take our relationship to the next level, but this, but that. I mean, she was so fickle about her actions, you know what I mean, and worried about stuff, you know what I mean, and worried about my kids. And I said, man, it's just me and my kids here, and nobody, I don't see any of my family. They don't go to school. She was just tripping on the fact of trying, getting sick, being close with me and getting sick, and I kind of took it a certain way, and I'm just like, you know what, man, before all this, we're hanging out, and then keep watching the news, it just became, the long of it all, the short of it all was that it didn't work out. It was a disappointment, and for some reason it hit me like a ton of bricks, testing the waters to date, because I hadn't been with anybody since Alicia 10, 11 years earlier. Right. And still not knowing where she was at. I know she was wrapped up in her addiction, and she was ripping and running. She knew I came home, but she didn't show up. She couldn't get clean. You and I talked about that stuff offline, where, what had happened to her had affected her so bad, and the shameful things that one woman or a man does when they're out there and they're trying to get drugs and they're living that life, stuff they can't remember, stuff that they do, or that they use their bodies for, man. And it takes a strong person to see past that when the real person is inside. And I guess that was a blessing and that was the curse. I was trying to hold on to those memories and thinking that she was going to snap out of it, but I had no way of getting a hold of her. And I also knew that I had to move on, right? And trying to move on, man, it was never really a success.
Yeah, I remember. I remember.
I decided, and I got in touch with you, and then we started breaking bread. You know what I mean? And then I decided to come back out west, and then come see you guys, man, out there in the Southwest when you were living out there. And then that's when we did that live in Houston with King Rojo. You know what I mean? And that's when I realized, man, that you know what, I got to come back to the States. You know what I mean? Seeing everybody again. That was at the time where Gunner and Cholo Trucker were fighting. You know what I mean? Is when that whole big, turning California upside down, according to the YouTube world, right? It was the biggest, the next thing next to discovering Pruno, how to make Pruno, right?
Yeah.
And I wish I could have been there, though, man. It was cool, but we watched it. I ended up hooking up with JoJo and then Alicia's sister, and then.
Now you're skipping ahead right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
you're
right.
Skipping ahead. Okay, so he came on the channel. I told him, okay, that I'm gonna start talking for a little bit, real quick. I told him, look, bro, you have to come on and tell your story, man. You know what I'm saying? What happened happens too often. Not that shouldn't have happened. You have to come on and tell your story. And in the process of his whole purpose for come on the story was also he hoped to find Alicia. Yeah. So his second interview, right, the closure, he revealed something in that video. I'm gonna let him talk about that right now.
Yeah, so I dropped the second part of my story on stories written by a current prisoner, and then the first part, it opened up a lot of eyes, and a lot of her family heard it, and then her sister Regina, who was there that night, who was engaged to my homeboy Jojo, who caught a case behind the same backing me up, or backing the family's play up. He was engaged to her. She got a hold of me through Instagram, through somebody else, and we finally talked. And I hadn't talked to her in about 12 years, and she was crying and she was upset, but she was like, wow, you know what I mean? She's like, I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you're doing well. We had no way of getting a hold of you. I said, man, I can't let your sister go. You know what I mean? I said, I want to be there. I says, I don't know where she's at. Last time I heard from her was, at this time. And she's like, you don't know what happened? And I said, well, and I'm just thinking, whatever. She went on one of her drug benders. I said, you know what, man? It doesn't matter. And she's like, and she started crying. And Jojo got on the phone, and he's like, hey, he's like, I don't know how to tell. He goes, you know what? You got to tell him. I'm like, well, what happened? I'm thinking maybe she got locked up. Well, she was found dead in the Tenderloin, in the Garment district, in one of the homeless encampments down there in LA. She had overdosed, and I guess her heart had exploded from the drugs, and she had been down there for a few days. You know what I'm saying? And it was shortly after her and I had a conversation, when I had come home. We were supposed to hook up when I was in San Jose at the THU, and that's when we had a heart-to-heart conversation. And she told me how hard it was for her, because she's just like, Toko, I've done a lot of shameful things. She's like, and I told her, it's all right. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I love you. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. I said, I'm home now. She's like, I know you're home. I know you're here. And I could tell that she was high, because she was trying to keep her thoughts so close together, right? She was trying to explain herself. She's like, I know you're home. I know you're here. She goes, but you don't understand. I'm not the same girl that you were engaged to. She goes, there's been a lot of stuff that's been happening. You know what I mean? I don't talk to my family. I've done a lot of shameful stuff. And then she was crying, and she was being normal, and then she was crying again. She was crying. And I just told her, listen, whatever it is, man, we'll get through it. We'll get through it. We're starting over. This is our second chance. I said, I'm home now. And she's like, I know, baby. She's like, just remember, I love you. She's like, just give me a couple days. She's like, I'm going to get a hold of my sister. She's like, I promise, which I should have known. You know what I mean? She goes, I promise I'll see you in a couple days. She's like, I'm happy that, I'm happy that you're home. And then I never heard from her again. And then I didn't think nothing of it. You know what I mean? I thought she went on the thing, but that's what she ended up down in LA, because on her mom's side of the family, she's got family down there. And then she went to go stay with her aunt. She tried to clean up, and then I guess she took some money, or they caught her getting high, one of the two, and her aunt's straight-laced, completely away from any of this stuff, and just kind of threw her out in the streets. And because, Alicia was a little baddie, man. She was a little hottie. You know what I mean? Anybody that knew her and I, man, knew she was a beautiful girl. She's down in LA. She's going to get attracted to what she's going to get attracted to, and she ended up in the wrong company, man, and they just left her there. She OD'd. There was nothing foul that was done to her. She was just inside. She just was found inside of a tent. Someone discovered her. You know what I mean? And this was all told to me on the phone, man. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know whether to cry, put my fist through the window, or the first thoughts that went through my mind was like, God damn, man. You know what I mean? Again, another.
My mic was on mute, man. I got a question for you, brother, and I'm going to ask you something, man. And I think that part of healing and part of recovering is getting it out there. You know what I'm saying? And this could help someone else out there.
Yeah.
I want to know honestly, right? And you know I love you, right?
Yeah.
How did that make you feel inside? Was there any guilt or resentments that you had in yourself?
Oh man. Honestly, man, part of me died when I found that out. It was almost like she had been dead already and I didn't know about it for a few months. She'd been gone. And that was going back to, like I said, those weird feelings that I was having, that something pulling me back, out to California, or trying to reach out, or tell my story or do whatever. I was going to feel like I was going crazy. And I really believe, man, that was, her telling me, man, that she was gone and I had to move on. But, you really don't know. Here again, another situation with her where how am I going to react?
Yeah.
I knew not to go out and get loaded and get drunk or go put hands on anybody, because everybody had kind of prepared me, bro, the last few years. Like, hey, counselors that I talked to, other homies that had wives that suffer from addiction or that died, they just said, hey, man, it's going to get a hell of a lot worse before it gets better. And it may never get better, but it's going to come to a point in time where those kids have to be more important. So do you. You're going to have to walk away because it's going to be detrimental to your health, and, I mean, it was a fucked up time. A lot of it was a blur, man, because again, I was bolo cholo.
So I want to ask this, right? Because I think this is important because we've all faced different trials and tribulations. Me and you talk a lot more than people realize, right? And I know a little bit about what you've gone through as far as more intricate details. We're not going to discuss all that, right? But what tools did you learn that you're dealing with this each day? What have you learned to try to help you get through this currently? What has been your outlet? What has been your resources? What could you help anybody else out and give them the right direction of what they can do?
When I went to go visit her grave, the healing part of it came from her mother and her father and her sister. And they just kind of embraced me and they just said, this ain't on you. We all know who this is on. The cat's out of the bag, but the only way you're not going to do a service to yourself, or you're going to honor her memory, you have to move on. She wants you to move on. She wanted you to be happy. These were all things that I didn't know over the last 10 years. Conversations, letters, a lot of stuff I'm not going to get into because it's private.
Yes, sir.
She was more, the type of woman she was more worried about me than herself. She knew she was gone. This, according to Regina, she knew that she was so far gone that she wasn't going to let my life pass me by waiting on her. If that's not unselfish, I don't know what is, right? But of course, I wasn't going to do that, but I had made a decision right then and there to get a hold of her old counselor that she went through for therapy.
Yeah.
And reach out because they had all asked about me at the funeral, and once I got a hold of her, man, she plugged me in with some programs where I was at, and then I felt, if anything, man, my story needed to get out. And then, like I said, this is backtracking. This is before you and I started talking and corresponding, and I was just watching the channel. I would go to a lot of the women's shelters and the housings out there, on the islands, and domestic violence and stuff, and just felt like I was going to honor her memory. I look back at the old court documents and all the letters that I got from women. It's the only reason why I didn't get 15 to life and I got 10 and a half on the second strike is because I had a bunch of letters flooded from this dude's victims and people he went to school with and people that didn't know me, but they felt that what I had done, was admirable, and I saved her life. Because another fucked up fact, and I'm only gonna give him this props, if you want to call it props. His statement to the police, once he was well enough, was he said, if Toko would have been 5 minutes late, I was gonna kill her, because I knew he was connected to the NR, and he would have went straight to the NF, and they would have I would have came up missing for what I did. I knew I had fucked up and what I did to her, So him saying that kind of closed the books on them pushing the issue about, you know what I mean? I had this whole thing planned out. I pretty much, like I said, he was gonna offer. And when I kicked down that door to go get her, not knowing that he was in there, saved her life. But then again, did it really? She got to live it at that moment. It did. And I had a lot of guilt over that. You know what I mean? Like I said, I healed from that. And I just felt that the only way I can honor her memory, man, because I don't know nothing about counseling. I don't know nothing about helping and volunteering and being one of these dudes, man. That shit don't come natural to me. You know what I mean? I had to learn that behavior, man. And the best thing that her counselor said, she's like, you know what? You need to go tell this story to other victims of these type of crimes. And I said, last thing they're going to want to do is hear from a man. They're like, you know what? They do. They need to learn how to trust again.
Yeah.
In your story, hearing you're the man on the other side of that made the ultimate sacrifice. And I would downplay it all the time. And I just tell people, man, I'm no fucking hero. I'm a fucking gangster. I'm a fuck. You know what I mean? I was willing to take this fucking dude out. I says, you know what I mean? I put him in a wheelchair, man. And that wasn't because I had an S on my chest and I was trying to do the right thing, man. This dude fucked with my family. And you don't do that. You know, I'm old school as they fucking come. And, you know, I mean? This next generation doesn't understand that because it's all about reporting and it's all about calling the police and doing whatever, which is the right thing to do. But backtrack, man, to the years that we were doing what we were doing. You didn't do that. You handled it all in-house. You know what I mean? And like I said, my life came full circle with that. I got burned, and I got burned bad over that shit. And so I just, like I said, I started volunteering. You know what I mean? I started listening to these women. And who better to ask how I could help but from them? And you know what they told me, Flaco? 95% of all the women, teenagers, the older women, to women that have been assaulted multiple times, right? They just said, fucking listen. What you're doing now, Toko, just listen and be there.
That's right.
So I would cook. I'd clean. I'd help them set up dressers. I'd do whatever. I was the only dude doing it.
It feels good, huh, when you're being of service.
It felt good. You know what I mean?
That's the same thing I was doing. Same thing early.
And I didn't want nothing in return but for them to feel safe, you know? And the counselor told me, she's like, when they start calling you on your phone, asking you to come and help, you know you got their trust. She goes, if they never do, then we'll stop this program and it's volunteer and we'll find you something else to do. Within 2 months, man, you know what I mean? You know, my name was synonymous over there in Hawaii at the shelter. You know, you got people that came out there, women that come from Colorado, from New York, thinking they're going to be the next top model or they want to go live in paradise. They end up meeting some dude who gets them hooked on dope, makes them go out and sell themselves, you know, or they go out there, taken from their family, to be isolated on that island, to be beaten and, you know, to be enslaved, all kinds of different things, right? And here I come, I'm just this fucking ex-con, DO, right? Degenerate, right? All this other stuff.
Gangster, fucking ex-cholo. Hey, we quit being cholos back in in the 90s, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
I keep on telling someone keeps on telling me you were just I go, no, we quit being cholos when we committed to that life. We were that was for them.
You really want to get technical, fucking cholo is just gangster in Spanish. You know what I'm saying? But people don't know that. They just think it means you know, the hat flip backwards and all that. But hey, man, Triple OG and all these other cats will attest to it. You fucking creased up, right? You look fucking sharp back in those days, bro. You know what I mean?
90s
style, the 90s, man. That was all up and down Cali. That was it. Lowrider, cholo, you know, certain stilo and stuff like that. You know, anyway, it felt good to give back. You know what I mean? And that's where my fucking quota was always been. That's why I got involved and my life had come full circle. You know what I'm saying? And I made the decision to, you know, come back to the mainland. You know what I mean? After I come to see you in Rojo, Pastor David. And
Pastor David Rocha, man. Shouts out to Sir Dino, everybody.
Yeah.
I forgot. I linked you guys up.
You know what I mean?
I remember I put you guys in contact.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? I knew of him, you know what I mean, from from Prieto stories, right? You know, the whole thing, and you verified all that when you got a hold of Dino and all that. But you know, God bless. You know, I mean, God rest his soul. Prieto was you know what I mean? He didn't care for him too much. You know what I mean? But
because he tried to tax him, bro.
yeah, he did. Don't come to anyway, story for another time.
Anyway, yeah, I know all about it, bro. I was kind of involved in it.
Yeah, it was just kind of funny though when you see how everybody's changed for the
yeah. We were trying to tax Dino. Trust me.
Yeah. Yep. You know what I mean? And you know, it's just trying to help, just trying to help other people now, man. You know what I mean? That's what I do. I do it in silence. The only reason why I'm talking about it now is because it's part of the story. But anybody that knows me, active or not, I don't do shit for clout.
So okay, look, I'm not gonna put you on blast too much, but I have to right now, right?
Yeah.
You have a new job, a new position.
Yeah.
What's your title?
Supervisor, bro.
What did you have to go through to get that supervisor position? Let everybody know what you had to go through as an ex-felon.
Oh man. So, you know, I don't have my record completely sealed, but it's been over 10 years. But certain jobs, their government jobs or whatever, they do a lifetime check. Somehow or another, I cleared the background when I got this job. When I moved back out to the Southwest, and you know, I got this highlight, and I cleared the background. Okay, I figured it's not in Cali, so you know we're good, right? And I excelled at the job so much, and I picked it up so much, you know what I mean? And I'm quiet, but I'm also, you know, my employees I'm also a likable individual because I'm fair. You know what I'm saying? I don't play no favorites, man. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I'm not going to get down there and do. Matter of fact, I get in trouble because I'm doing 100 different things, but I'm making sure it gets done because I want to get the fuck out of there on time. You know what I mean? And they're always pushing that issue. Overtime only if we need it. Yada, 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 you know, and this, that, and the other. So, you know what I mean? Fuck, I'm following rank and file, just like, you know what I mean? I'm going to follow the rules. Yeah. I got that thought in my head all day, man, and the powers that be seen that. So they put me up for a position, and I applied for it. Well, I didn't know that when you apply in-house for positions with this company, they run your fucking background again. And they ran it extensive, and then they found the DA referral from a few, at that time it was like 6 years earlier, you know what I'm saying? And they were telling me that they can't promote me because something came up in my background, which I thought was hypocritical. I said, but you know what I mean? I damn near been working for you guys for a year. You know what I mean? How in the hell am I going to pass a live scan and a fingerprinting? And then all of a sudden I want to make a little bit more money and better myself. And now I can't do the promotion because my background plays into that. So what I had to do was, you know, an OG told me this, man, when I was in Tehachapi. He says, an individual like yourself, as smart and as sharp as you are on paper, and when you're with the raza, you have to fucking beat these motherfuckers on paper. Well, how do I do that? He goes, you need to draft something up, and, you know what I mean, you need to speak for yours. You need an opportunity to speak for who you are. You know what I mean? And to what you are. So I pulled all my records from HR, my attendance, all my accolades, all the mini promotions that I got within the position that I got, right?
Prison politics, brother.
You know what I'm saying? And I got all that and put it in a fucking file, and I fucking submitted my report like I would to you or fucking Rojo or Box, but I submitted it to fucking my management team that told me no, but above their head.
No, that's right.
And I fucking said, hey, why am I not eligible for this?
You jump channels, bro.
You know what I mean? I've been doing all these things, man, and I just, like I said, I had all my bases covered, and I put it in a respectful letter, and I just says, you know what I mean? I don't feel it's right. And other people spoke up for me on my behalf, and you know what? That changed the policy.
That's right. Man, congratulations. I commend you on doing that, man. That's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's part of the struggle, man. It is not allowing anybody to try to suppress you from fulfilling your goals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
that's a prime example of like, pushing that agenda for equal rights, equal justice and stuff. You know what I mean? And filing that paperwork, man. Much respects on that. Now you're blessed. You're a supervisor.
Oh yeah, that comes with that. That's a
You know,
whole.
okay, guys. He just got out in 2019.
Yeah.
What kind of car do you drive right now?
What kind of car do I drive right now? Shit, man, I drive a motherfucking Tesla, bro.
What year?
2022.
He drives a 2022 Tesla. He's making decent money.
Yeah,
He
it's on my
provides for his
ID.
kids.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You know, and he's still healing, man. Your story right here, man, is just awesome, man. Everything that you've achieved, man, and getting to know you, I got a lot of love for you, brother. You already know that, man. And
And
I see good things are going to come for you, bro. 100%, man. Because I went through the same stuff in a different form and fashion, man. But I kind of was suffering a little bit different, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, when all this stuff happened with me and shit, man, it was fucking, my ego got in the way, bro. I had a huge ego.
Oh, yours and mine, bro. You know what I mean? You were out. Imagine being in, going through what you went through.
Man, I felt like I was in though, bro, because I didn't know who I was anymore. The person I was back in like the 2000s, the 90s, Flaco, without Flaco, I was someone totally different, man. I was not that person. I look at myself in the mirror, I'd be like, man, that's not me. You know what I mean? That's not me. And then all I had was the thoughts of who I used to be. And now I'm like thinking, okay, I don't have to be that version of Flaco. Even though there's some good things that I learned from that lifestyle, I could be this version now. Yep. And that's the part that I had to learn to accept. I mean, like, just because, I was involved in things from like, running prison yards, running shit on the streets, fucking having people stabbed, stabbing people, having people ordered to do this and do that, making money or whatnot. Whatever I had to do out there, I was always in the mix. That's my past. I could use some of the things that I was a part of in my past to try to help others. You know what I'm saying? Because I also fell off too as well. I also became someone that no one would have thought that I would have ever been in my life. I've hit that rock bottom, met with loneliness and desperation and stuff like that. And that's the hardest part. I mean, everybody's truth and how they reach where they need to go. It's one step at a time. Yeah. Sometimes we want that instant gratification because of who we used to be. And we expect that we have it coming, but that's not the way life is. And that's why a lot of convicts and gangsters, when they get out, they can't be successful because they're used to a certain way of life. They expect everything just to come to them. Well, you've been locked up for 5-7 years. You got to work at it to get there. Yeah. Too many people quit too early, man. And it just, I have no regrets in anything I did. Nothing, because it's led me to where who I am today. And I know I'm a better person. I know I care about people. Even when you get some trolls that be talking smack and this and that, they don't know me as a person, bro. They really don't know the things that I do. They don't know what I've been through. They don't know what I did, and sometimes I have to refrain from old behaviors because I'm one of those, I'm still old school. Like, you disrespect me. I still want to, click clack, and still put something in the back of someone's head, but I can't be that person no more because I have to be a better example, and it's so hard. Like, when you hear all this stuff about, derogatory remarks or this and that, it's like, man, I don't want to hear it. But either put a bullet in my head or fucking punch me in my lip. Otherwise, I don't want to hear it. I'm living my life. Let me do me. I've walked a life that you've never, ever been a part of, that you've never, ever done. And people don't realize that change is difficult. It's a struggle, bro. It's hard, man. That ego still gets in the way at times in a lot of people, bro. And I commend you for not only overcoming your ego, because, the tragedy with Elisa and everything that you did and sacrifice in 10 years of your life, you know what I'm saying? And I know you're still going through it a little bit, man. I know you're still healing and you're recovering, bro. But getting out here and interacting and helping people like you did, that's the best way to recovery, man. When you can sit there and finally do things for to help others, that's positive, and you're making an impact, is one of the best spiritual solutions you can find, is helping other people, brother. But don't forget that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. What gets me through it is this, man. Anytime I'm going through it, anytime I'm thinking, woe is me, because I'm a human being, man. I'm not perfect. I have those thoughts that run through my head.
Oh yeah, man. I get out of character too, man.
Yeah, I just remember I got to keep it. Anytime I do that, man, I think of your kids. I think of your family. OG's kids, his family, Jay Miller, Mad Man. I think about everybody. They're civilians. They're kids. Their family outside of who we were or what we were involved in. Those are civilians. So if I go out acting a fool because I have a bad day, or because I'm feeling sorry for myself, or I feel some type of guilt or whatever, you know what I mean? I put people like that at risk. So how could I say I'm a righteous individual and I'm turning my life around if I'm still acting that way? That's why I'm telling somebody this today. When I let everything go and I went through the debriefing process, I made a decision right then and there, man, that all the anger, all the animosity, all that fucking brainwashing was done. Wherever I was going to end up, I was going to embrace everybody that was told to be my enemy, or that I was taught to hate. Because when I was active, man, there were a lot of relationships that I built on money making, on having, with upstaters, with a lot keeping the peace, right? This is all active, man. This is stuff I never talked about, but this is all stuff. Hey, man, if you can make a buck, do it. If you can get them to fucking do it, one hand washes the other. A lot of people don't remember that shit. So why can't I do that? Like I said, some of the best individuals, some of the dudes that I call brother, were the opposition, or the so-called opposition. You know what I mean? And
people need to hear that, though. People do need to hear that, man, because too often or not, we associate with what you represent as the individual.
I always tell people all the time,
man. What I mean? It's about judging each person as a man. I don't care where you're from, anything, man. I'm gonna judge you as a man.
Like I said, I love going down to fucking Fresno, because my intentions are just to go and fucking see the things that, you know what I mean? There's a whole lot of fucking culture down there. LA is another second home away from home, man. You know what I mean? All that stuff down there, man. Some of the best men and women I've met are from down there, and they respect the hell out of individuals like us that are trying to do something